Chapter 251. No pop-up window. Free to read. A genius will remember Love Go Small in 1 second. Talk.net, providing you with interesting novels to read. In the car, Han Xiao smoked a cigarette as he repaired his mechanical suit. At the same time, he opened the players' forum. The German organization player that he had just killed had posted a post. Mission target discovered. Han Xiao's coordinates are: the German organization has released a new tracking mission. 8 missing, 2 requesting to form a team. Location: Austin Fort. Depart in 20 minutes. Upon seeing this, Han Xiao chuckled. The German organization players also participated in the tracking mission. As the mission requirement was only to discover his tracks, it would not lower their favorability with him, so the players accepted the mission without worry. Although Han Xiao had not given any benefits to the German organization players so far, with the players from the other 3 continents as examples, the German organization players still loved him. Ever since Han Xiao's identity was exposed, the players were very enthusiastic about him and actively participated in missions related to Han Xiao. However, they had no other choice. The German organization's current strategic focus was completely on him. Basically, all of their missions revolved around hunting down Han Xiao. Logically speaking, an enemy that could be resurrected should cause a lot of trouble, but Han Xiao was glad that the players participated in the pursuit. In addition to tracking, the German organization also estimated his location based on the tracks and set up an encirclement in advance. However, Han Xiao would always break through a weak defense gap before the encirclement was fully formed. This was not a coincidence. The posts shared by the German organization players on the forums were his source of information. The players did not know that an NPC could see their forums, and the German organization did not know about the existence of the forums. So Han Xiao was in the middle. He pieced together the movement of the German organization's troops from the information on the forums and saw through the German organization's deployment. But the German organization did not know where the information was leaked from. The German organization did not know that this time they had been tricked by their own inhuman, and the leader had no doubt that Han Xiao had the ability to foresee the future. Han Xiao was not worried that the German organization players would not post anything. Recently, his popularity had been extremely high. He had almost dominated the Blue Star section, and the players showed great enthusiasm for him. He had revealed his true face. Compared to his original middle-aged, salted fish uncle face, it was like the line between heaven and hell. Han Xiao successfully harvested the first wave of fangirls. Under the hot post that revealed his identity, there were a bunch of shocked replies such as, "What the F *CK? Who are you, handsome? And there's no harm without comparison." There were also a bunch of kisses and love from female players. A behind-the-scenes, boss-like character turned out to be a fresh young man. This contrast was especially easy to win the hearts of female players. Han Xiao finally enjoyed the treatment of having female fans. One had to know that when he was still Black Phantom, those who chased after him were all a bunch of nerds. However, the enthusiasm of the players was beyond his expectations. After the initial shock, the direction of the players' discussion gradually became strange. The German organization players took screenshots of his escape and shared them on the forum. When the players saw that he had a big girl, a small girl, a mature woman, and a lowly with him, they instantly exploded. Why did he have to escape with 2 women? Needless to say, this had to be love. Therefore, a player with a crazy imagination came up with a love story in his head. "I was once a test subject, and I experienced inhuman torment. And in that abysmal darkness, she was the only light. Every time I saw her tall figure and cold face, the torment inflicted on me seemed to no longer be painful. Although I was only a lowly test subject, and she never smiled at me, her angry rebuke and cold eyes made me feel the warmth of spring. Could it be this is the feeling of love? So I secretly swore that if one day I could escape and become a big shot, I would definitely stand in front of her and use the most affectionate tone to tell her, 'I love you.'" When he saw this post, Han Xiao spat out the energy drink in his mouth on a hella. Which perverted masochist wrote this? Which rock did you jump out from, you drama queen? Don't let me see you outside. I'll kill you back to level 0. This was only one of the versions. Some people imagine that Han Xiao and the red-haired mature woman fell in love at first sight, so the mature woman gave up her faith and eloped with him, taking a little girl with them. Chapter 252. No pop-up window. Free to read. A genius will remember Love Go Small in 1 second. You will be able to read a lot of interesting novels. These things can last you about 5 days. Eat sparingly. If you hear the Germinal Organization's search team nearby, don't make a sound, Han Xiao reminded her. Aurora nodded timidly. She buried her head between her knees and stared at the two of them as they left. Suddenly, she said, "Sister, I'll wait for you to pick me up." Hella paused for a moment. She took a deep breath and steeled her heart before walking out. Han Xiao disguised the entrance of the cave and left a GPS tracker. He let Hella drive while he cleaned up the tracks behind the car. The Germinal Organization's people would not be able to follow this route through the tracks. After returning to the main road, Han Xiao returned to the car. Hella turned around and looked at him with burning eyes. "Are you really confident?" Han Xiao nodded. "I don't joke about my life." Hella was silent for a while. Suddenly, she said, "If I die, I'll leave my sister to you. With your strength, the chances of you escaping alone are higher than mine. If you use that tone to say a few more words, you might really die." Han Xiao stared at her with his eyes that had disappeared for a long time. Although he complained, he understood Hella's feelings. For her, every step she took now was full of danger. She was not as strong as he was, and she did not know what the future would be like. She only had her sister. She put her heart and soul into Aurora and was even willing to sacrifice her life for her sister. Therefore, she became pessimistic about her own fate. However, saying these words also meant that Han Xiao had completely won Hella's trust. This was the goal he had set when he first got involved in this matter. "I've contacted the reinforcements from the 6 nations. They're already nearby. I've agreed on a location with them. If we fail to break out tomorrow, we still have reinforcements. If everything goes well, we don't even need reinforcements to break out." "I hope so." Hella looked at Han Xiao and did not say anything. An hour later, the car stopped at a secluded hill. There's still 10 hours until the agreed time. The direction of the breakout is to the east. The plan is like this. Han Xiao took out Viper and placed it in front of Hella. "You will use this mecha. In these 10 hours, you must familiarize yourself with how to use the various weapons on the mecha." Hella was shocked. "What about you? If we want to break out of the encirclement, we'll have to cause a commotion. I'll go blow up their vehicles and ammunition. They'll definitely be on guard against my disguise equipment, but I have an invisibility ability." Han Xiao was naturally referring to the Dion character summon card that he had used once at the headquarters. Hella understood. "That's why I used the mecha to disguise myself as you to attract the enemy's attention. That's because you're their most important target." Han Xiao nodded. This tactic made use of inertial thinking and sneaking around. It wasn't brilliant, but it was effective. He adjusted the mecha, gave Hella access, and taught her how to put on. After putting on the mecha, it was a whole new experience. Looking at the outside world through the display screen, it was as if a door to a new world had been opened. Hella tried to move her arms and legs, and found that there was extra strength. Following Han Zhao's instructions, she called out the various controls of the mecha on the built-in screen. It was very complicated and dazzling. "So complicated, did you make all this?" Hella's tone was slightly surprised. "Did it fall from the sky?" Han Xiao said in annoyance. Han Xiao guided Hella to familiarize herself with Viper's controls. Hella knew that time was tight, so she put in a lot of effort to learn. Han Xiao did not need her to familiarize herself with the mecha. He only needed her to be able to hold on for a while under siege. The night faded and the sun rose. Time passed quickly during the training. The two of them did not sleep the entire night. Han Xiao looked at the sky and said, "It's about time. Don't take off the mecha. Remember the plan and don't make any mistakes." Chapter 253. No pop-up window. Free to read. Devin tested the waters carefully, and after a while, he realized that Black Phantom did not crush him like he had expected, so he gradually relaxed. So, the legendary Black Phantom is not that strong. I was worried for nothing. The rumors were all exaggerated. Devin was energized, and his confidence surged. He was no longer afraid and started to attack ferociously. The bone-armored giant fought with a mecha warrior, and the sound of fists colliding with a mecha was endless. The executive officer who followed him was originally wary of Black Phantom, but now, seeing that Devin was able to exchange blows with Black Phantom, he was very surprised. When did the captain become stronger? No, it seems that Black Phantom has become weaker. After escaping for so long, it's impossible for him to maintain his peak condition. He's at his weakest now. The executive officer's morale was greatly boosted, and they were no longer afraid. They all rushed up to attack. According to the importance that the leader placed on him, if they could kill Han Xiao, it would definitely be a great achievement. Kill him while he's weak. As the supers attacked, the surroundings were damaged by the aftershocks and became full of holes. The army was not idle either, and they threw cannonballs at Hela like they were free. Hela was in a precarious situation, retreating step by step. She gritted her teeth and endured the endless waves of attacks. If it was her original combat style, she would not have allowed herself to be in such a situation. If not for this mechanical suit, she would have been heavily injured long ago. She was very surprised by the defensive capabilities of Viper. The leader's eyes lit up. His condition has deteriorated. Very good. There are fewer variables now. He originally wanted to use the 5 veteran executive officers to hold Han Xiao back, but he realized that Han Xiao's strength had deteriorated. He must have been exhausted from the high-intensity escape. The leader was very surprised. At this time, Black Phantom was held back by Devin, and he was in a quagmire. Who is this executive officer? He has great potential, the leader said. The assistant quickly checked the information and said, his name is Devin. His resume, there's nothing special. The leader scolded. We're at war now, and every strong person is an important resource. It's a serious dereliction of duty to miss any one of them. Hela attracted everyone's attention. While the battle raged on, Han Xiao snuck into the troops and secretly planted bombs on the chassis of the various vehicles. No one saw him. Dean's special ability was very useful. Even if Han Xiao stood in front of a soldier, he would not be discovered. However, Han Xiao was still very careful. Once he entered combat mode, his stealth would disappear. This Esper ability is indeed suitable for being a cat burglar. No wonder Dean was able to steal secrets. He probably went to many good places. Damn it, Han Xiao was a little envious. When he was in his teenage years, he liked to fantasize about having an invisibility ability. It was once one of his 33 goals in life, but he only crossed it off after he experienced more. In the invisible state, Han Xiao's perception of his surroundings was completely different. It was as if everything around him was covered with a layer of fog, making it appear unreal. This reminded him of an old movie that he had watched in his free time. The plot of the movie was about an invisible ring, and the feeling of wearing it was very similar. The movie seemed to be called The Ring of the King, or something. This troop had limited vehicles, so Han Xiao finished planting the bombs very quickly. He left behind a few vehicles for escape. There are still 2 minutes left. When the explosion happens, I just need to grab one of the vehicles to escape. So far, everything was going smoothly. Han Xiao returned to the vicinity of the battlefield. Hela was currently being surrounded and had almost no strength to fight back. Just by relying on a mechanical suit that she was not familiar with, she could not block the attacks of a group of executive officers and super soldiers. Han Xiao took out the communicator connected to the mechanical suit and whispered, I'm about 80 meters north of you. There will be a big explosion soon. Come over and switch with me immediately. There's an armored off-road vehicle nearby. Although Hela could not see Han Xiao, she heard his order. She counted down the time. 10 seconds, 5 seconds, 3 seconds. At this time, Han Xiao pressed the trigger button. Chapter 254. No pop-up window, free to read. Only when he wore Viper would he be the real Black Phantom. The sudden change caused the troops to fall into a temporary state of chaos. Han Xiao seized this fleeting opportunity and jumped into the car. Hela stepped on the accelerator, and the armored off-road vehicle charged forward like a runaway bull, breaking out of the encirclement. The Germinal troops still remembered the mission from their superiors and did not dare to delay. They quickly gave chase. Han Xiao had already equipped his long-range weapon and fired at the troops chasing after him. Most of the vehicles were blown up by him, and there were only a few troops chasing after him. The rest were all left behind. With a clear path ahead, Hela rushed out of the encirclement. Although she was very tired, she was also excited. We escaped. Hearing this, Han Xiao had a bad feeling. As expected, just as he finished speaking, the sound of rotors approached quickly. 3 black harriers were approaching in a triangle formation. This is the Germinal organization's Rapid Response Force. Hela's expression changed. Luckily, there are only 3 armed helicopters. Their firepower is limited. When they get close, my ability can ignore the armor and directly kill the pilots inside. Virum, Han Zhao's mechanical suit's built-in radar suddenly sounded an alarm. It detected 5 individuals with extremely strong life signals on the 3 helicopters. Comparing them to the database, they were all superhumans above LV-50. They were all the top combat power of the Germinal organization. These 3 helicopters were used to transport troops. If they were surrounded by superhumans of the same level, there was no way they could escape successfully. He suddenly felt depressed. Are you poisonous? UF ** King, shut up. Do you want to die faster? Han Xiao yelled at Hela. Then, without saying anything, he took off the ghost sniper rifle from his back, opened it from its folded form, and fired at the pilot's seat of the first helicopter. The bullet with blue electric arcs jumped out of the muzzle and flew across the sky like a thin and straight bolt of lightning. However, the electromagnetic sniper rifle that had always been successful failed this time. The bullet with electric arcs suddenly stopped in front of the window of the helicopter. It was as if there was a big hand in the air that grabbed it, and an invisible force field twisted the air. A force field ability user, at least level 55. Han Xiaoxin's heart sank as he knew that something was wrong. At this time, a middle-aged woman in a combat suit appeared from a helicopter. Han Xiao zoomed in and saw the woman's appearance clearly. She looked ordinary with a hideous scar that split her lips. Her short hair was fluttering in the wind. She stretched out her hand and aimed at the armored vehicle that had just rushed out of the encirclement. Han Xiao suddenly felt a strange vibration in the car. Chapter 255. No pop-up window. Free to read. Suddenly, within a 2-kilometer radius, all the corpses floated out of the gray fog and gathered on Hela's body. Hela suddenly opened her eyes, but her pupils were no longer dark red. Instead, they were a deep gray. The sound of bones cracking could be heard from her body, and her injuries began to heal. In just a few breaths, the broken bones were basically fixed, and the shocking wound on her abdomen closed and formed a scab. Ah, not dead. Han Xiao was pleasantly surprised. Looking at this scene, isn't this the legendary undying cockroach's little universe? What can't kill me makes me stronger, just like the close combat mage Gandalf, who directly leveled up to a white robe after narrowly escaping death. As expected of the future goddess of death, use your peerless skill, sister. Hela sat up, and the gray fog dissipated, and her pupils returned to normal. She coughed violently and was extremely weak. Go, don't worry about me. My condition is too bad. Han Zhao's mouth twitched. Damn. So she didn't use her peerless skill after making such a big commotion? Isn't this just a joke? I was happy for nothing. You're too weak. All right. I remember that she has a special ability called Ignore Instant Death, which allows her to gain a special status when her HP is lower than 1%. I thought it was an attack that ignored instant death, but it turns out that it's a recovery from near death. Her vitality is really tenacious. This ability must have a cooldown limit. Han Xiao thought to himself. He was surrounded by enemies, and his condition was not good. Hela had also become a burden. and her situation was extremely bad. Didn't you say that you would abandon me when necessary? Now is the time. Hurry up and go. Hela's face was pale, and she used all her strength to force the words out from between her teeth. She pressed her palms on Han Xiao's chest, trying to push him away. Okay. Han Xiao nodded decisively. He was not the kind of person who was wishy-washy. This was the best choice in front of him, and there was no point in staying. He would not make such a futile choice. Even if Hela was a potential stock that he wanted to win over, if necessary, he would not hesitate to give up Hela. Seeing that Han Xiao didn't waste any time, Hela heaved a sigh of relief. I'll leave my sister to, however, at this moment, a strange voice sounded from Han Xiao's communicator. Hey, I see you guys. Wait for me. Han Xiaoxin sensed something and looked to the south, only to see 3 black, unmarked heavy-armored off-road vehicles appear at the side of the battlefield, driving at high speed in a triangle formation. The German organization's military helicopters flew over and welcomed the group of uninvited guests. Han Xiao zoomed in and saw the window of the off-road vehicle in the front rolling down. A pale female hand reached out, wearing a string of red pearls on her wrist. The next moment, a raging flame ignited in his palm out of thin air, instantly turning into a roaring flame dragon that swept across the sky, turning several armed helicopters into exploding balls of fire. Boom! The helicopter fell. 3 cars drove past the burning wreckage. The reinforcements are here. Han Xiao felt as if a huge rock had been lifted from his heart. He patted Hela's face and smiled. Looks like you don't have to stay and wait for your death. The reinforcements were all elites selected by the 6 nations. They were all superhumans, and they were all well-equipped. The 3 heavy-armored off-road vehicles rampaged into the battlefield, tearing apart the encirclement of the German organization's troops. The female Esper who could control flames wantonly unleashed a sea of flames. This was not a simple flame, but a special flame born from energy. Once it hit the target, it would explode. It was called explosive flame, and it was one of the more powerful types of flame espers. With just one look, Han Xiao could tell that this woman was a grade C esper. The German organization's troops were preparing to turn their muzzles, but the 3 heavy-armored off-road vehicles spat out smoke at the same time, quickly filling half of the battlefield and obscuring their vision. The German organization's troops suddenly lost their target, and they could not even see their comrades. They could only see less than 1 meter. Coughing sounds could be heard in the thick smoke, and the smoke contained irritating components similar to tear gas. Where is the enemy? I can't see cough cough, it's too choking cough cough. A new enemy has appeared, requesting instructions. Blarg, requesting instructions. Radar is disrupted. The enemy has electromagnetic interference. The German organization's troops were in a mess, and the 4 veteran officers made a prompt decision. They followed the memory before their vision was obstructed and ran toward the most important target, Han Xiao, but found that Han Xiao was no longer at the same spot. Oh no, he's running away. Jaras was shocked. Who can sense his location? The 3 martial artists stared at each other in bewilderment. Chapter 256. No pop-up window. Free to read. Ambush. How? Tang Tang was shocked. T. Could it be that the German organization discovered us long ago and did not make a move because they wanted to numb us and wait for this opportunity to kill us all? What's the use of hindsight? Dina said angrily. After the rescue team infiltrated the German organization's territory, they had not been attacked. They thought that their whereabouts had not been discovered, but they did not expect this to be a trap. The situation suddenly took a turn for the worse. More than 10 hours ago, the leaders secretly transferred some of the troops from the west, north, and south of the encirclement to this desert in advance to lie in ambush. If Han Xiao successfully broke through the encirclement from the east of the New Stone Wasteland, he would lie in ambush on the only way. Han Xiao did not get any information about this operation from the forum because there were no players in the troops. The leader remembered Cyberlow's guess. If Zero was an inhuman, Perhaps there was a special communication method between the Inhumans. In order to be safe, the leader did not use any mutants this time, and by a stroke of luck, they managed to hide the operation. The temporary command center of the leader was not the headquarters, but here. They had been waiting for a long time. On the sand dune in front of them, the leader stood with his hands behind his back. His long windbreaker danced with the sand, and his expression was hidden under the mask, as usual. Behind him, dozens of executive officers lined up in a row, like hunters waiting for their prey to fall into a trap. Their eyes locked onto each other from afar. They finally met. The leader's cold voice sounded again from the communicator. "Didn't you want to fight me? I'm right here. Do you dare to come?" Han Shao sighed. Well done. The leader's move was both unexpected and reasonable. During the call with the leader last night, he was not the only one testing the leader. The leader was also testing him. Both of them had their own agendas. As the role of the prey, it was very difficult to make a flawless plan in the enemy's home ground. It was impossible to completely control the enemy's reaction. What Han Shao was facing was almost an all-encompassing net, and his conditions were limited. It was already very difficult for him to achieve this step. After tricking the leader so many times, he had finally gotten back at him. If it were not for the fact that he was the victim, Han Shao would have applauded and whistled for the leader. How difficult was that? It was too touching. There was no such thing as a foolproof plan. There would always be unexpected situations where one could not escape and could only be reckless. Strength was the only thing one could rely on. The goal of Han Zhao's plan was to obtain power. He was now standing at the upper limit of version 1.0 and was only one step away from breaking through to level 60. The current situation was both dangerous and an opportunity. About 10 Grade C supers versus thousands of well-equipped soldiers plus 50 executive officers. Isn't it just a head-on clash? Come on. Han Zhao's expression was calm as he turned off the communicator. There was still a few dozen seconds of buffer time before the battle started. He checked his own status. Viper Modified has 61% durability remaining, roughly 4,200 armor points, and over 3,800 HP remaining, roughly 87%. Above average condition. In the mission tab, the additional calculation for the battle just now had also been received. The ultimate trial had reached 815/2000 progress. The enemy has a lot of people, and their firepower is fierce. Our advantage is that our individual combat power is strong, and we can suppress the enemy in terms of high-end combat power. Han Shao calculated in his mind, and hoped that his teammates who had not yet appeared would be more helpful. A new mission suddenly appeared on the interface. You have triggered a Grade C special mission, the Traitor's Counterattack. Mission requirements: defeat the leader of the germinal organization with a damage output of no less than 60%. Mission reward: draw 2 skills or talents from a leader. Han Zhao's eyes flashed. Damage output of no less than 60%? That's a little difficult. Han Xiaoxin calculated. He had not fought the leader yet, so he had not seen his attributes. However, the leader was also a main character in the Blue Star storyline like Bennett, so he would definitely be extraordinarily strong. With his current condition, it would be difficult for him to even take out a third of the leader's health if he did not go all out, let alone defeat the leader. There was interference everywhere on the battlefield, so there might not be a chance for him to fight the leader alone. However, although the difficulty of the mission was high, the reward made Han Shao envious. He could draw 2 skills or talents from the leader. As one of the main characters of the planet, the leader would definitely have a molding skill or molding ability. He might even have a legendary super luck halo. However, he then recalled the tragedy of the germinal organization and said with uncertainty, he should have the luck halo. At this time, the 3 vehicles accelerated at the same time and rushed toward the enemy. Tang Tang said in a deep voice, "Everyone, prepare for battle. This is a chance to wipe out the high-end combat power of Zero and the 6 nations in one fell swoop." On the sand dune, the leader looked down at the 3 heavy-armored off-road vehicles approaching. He only had a dozen hours to mobilize the troops, and heavy vehicles like tanks would not be able to move over. The main force of the ambush was thousands of soldiers in temporary positions, forming a cover fire. Then, there were more than a dozen armed helicopters, and finally, the leader himself and dozens of executives as high-end combat power. Opened fire. In an instant, the sound of guns and cannons rang out like thunder. A black rain of bullets came from all directions, filling up every inch of space. The support troops in the center were like trapped beasts. At this time, an oval purple translucent energy shield opened and enveloped the three vehicles. The overwhelming barrage of bullets exploded on the energy shield one after another. The energy shield flickered continuously as if it would disappear at any time, but the three vehicles were not damaged at all. The high-speed movement scattered the thick smoke of the explosions, leaving behind a trail of black smoke. There was a minefield buried under the desert, causing yellow sand to fill the sky. The light of the energy barrier became even dimmer. The source of the energy shield was the vehicle on the left rear. It was the Esper ability of an unknown teammate. Under the protection of the energy shield, they approached the Germinal Organization troops safely. Ordina, protector of the purple light, Farshord. The leader's tone was calm. He had an impression of all the famous elites of the Six Nations, and he could guess who they were at a glance. The identity of the possible opponents were all under his control. The support troops were about to rush into the position, but the leader did not panic at all. He adjusted the formation of the troops to avoid the frontal assault and used the tactic of attrition. He knew that ordinary troops would not be able to stop a group of powerful superhumans from approaching. So he was prepared. The support troops rushed into the position as if they were in a quagmire. The leader's eyes flashed. Let me see, who else? Chapter 257. No pop-up window, free to read. The shockwave from the collision hit them head-on. When the dust settled, a circular sandpit was formed where the two of them were standing. Bennett's five-fold critical hit was earth-shattering, but the two of them shook at the same time. Neither of them had the upper hand. The two of them exchanged punches, and their movements were dazzling. It was like a black and purple python tearing at a white dragon. Wherever they passed, be it friend or foe, they all retreated in fear. What the F*CK, so reckless? Han Xiao clenched his teeth. Both of them were pugilists, and they had all kinds of talents and skills. They were both from different pugilist schools. Bennett had a sense of just right, showing off his combat experience to the fullest. The leader's style, on the other hand, was violent, wild, and cruel, just like the color of his flames. The combat strength of these two beasts was obviously half a level higher than other high-level supers. They had multiple templates and rare talents, and they were both boss-level supers. As expected of the main character of the planet, Han Technician's eyes suddenly sparkled. Bennett used Flaming Will to deal five-fold damage. Since the leader was able to block it, he definitely has a similar powerful skill. Thinking about the reward of Traitor's counterattack, Han Xiaoxin felt his head heat up. He knew that many hidden missions could give powerful skills and talents, but this mission was the simplest and most brutal. As long as he won, he would have a chance to eat fatty meat. It was very cost-effective. Han Xiao cooperated with his teammates to deal with the other enemies while calculating the combat strength of the leader. The result was not optimistic. First of all, he had been through many battles, and his current condition was average. He only had Viper left. As a mechanic, not having enough equipment meant not being in good condition. If it's a one-on-one battle with my current equipment, even if I perform a little better, both of us will be heavily injured at most. Plus, Bennett won't let me do that. If I attack the leader with Bennett, I won't be able to deal more damage than Bennett. Bennett also has Flaming Will, and it's even better than mine. Han Xiao was helpless. He thought for a moment. The best thing to do now was to maintain the current situation and let Bennett wrestle with the leader alone. The two of them were evenly matched. Although they were fighting fiercely, their HP dropped very slowly. Both of them were able to parry each other's attacks, so the outcome of the battle would not be decided in a short time. Moreover, no matter friend or foe, no one had any intention of interfering in the fierce battle between Bennett and the leader. As expected of a legend, our leader is stronger than any of us. Only Bennett can hold him back. We can't interfere in the battle there, Tang Tang said through the communicator as he waved a gust of wind, creating a sandstorm to control the situation. Bennett was the strongest link, and everyone tacitly agreed on this point. Even if they were arrogant, they were very convinced by the famous Bennett. The army is fighting a war of attrition with us. Right now, we are in a stalemate. Our strongest forces are restraining each other. Whoever wins will break the balance and change the entire situation. Falchard, who was releasing the energy shield, said. Everyone else agreed with this point of view. Han Xiao heard this, and his mind turned. He saw a turning point in completing the mission. He thought to himself, since the situation is in a stalemate, it's equivalent to squeezing out some time for me. This is the key to completing the traitor's counterattack. The turning point is the advancement mission, the ultimate trial. As long as I advance, I will be able to defeat the leader. With so many helpers around him and so many enemies, it was the best opportunity to gain trial points. Furthermore, Han Xiao had found the correct method. After the battle ended, he would gain extra trial points based on the difference in numbers between the two sides. Therefore, according to the previous statistics, he could roughly calculate how many extra trial points he had gained from killing enemies. Then, after leaving the battlefield once, he would be able to reach 2,000 points in the post-battle calculation. Defeating the leader meant successfully breaking out of the encirclement, which did not conflict with this mission. Han Xiao knew how to grasp the opportunity. If he missed this opportunity, there would not be another one. The two sides were in a fierce battle. Han Xiao's high-end forces were crushing the germinal organization. From time to time, there were executive officers who were injured and vomiting blood. Han Xiao was coordinating the overall situation through the combat information on the interface. He was sneakily taking advantage of the situation and even snatching kills from his teammates. His efficiency in harvesting trial points was unprecedented. If players were there, they would be able to tell at a glance that he was snatching kills. However, these teammates were not players. Seeing that Han Xiao was only sneaking around and shooting, they thought that Han Xiao was tired and was not in his best condition. They thought that Han Xiao would be a powerful helper, but now it seemed that he would not be of any use. This mission had become a babysitter. Diana, whose temper was as hot as a superpower, directly assigned the mission. Black Phantom, you are of no use here. Don't worry about the supers. You go and deal with the small fries. Since Black Phantom was not in his best condition, the best plan was to let him deal with the small fries. Diana's decision was not a problem in the eyes of the others, but Han Xiao just said a few perfunctory words and continued to do his own thing, not listening to their orders. Everyone's expression changed. Han Xiao was not willing to listen to orders. Could it be that he thought that he was a protected target and watched them work for him? They were all teammates and should be fighting side by side. Furthermore, they were here to provide support, but he did this. Everyone looked unhappy. Diana wanted to scold him, but she was attacked. She quickly blocked the attack and did not say anything. Humph, he is a traitor of the germinal organization. He hides here and there to poach people, instigating a war behind the scenes. He is indeed a despicable person. Chapter 258. No pop-up window. Free to read. 1 second to remember. A web novel with no pop-up window. The drifting dust was like a yellow fog, covering the sky with a layer of gauze. When the dust settled on the ground, the vision became clear. In the wind, a figure struggled to get up and half knelt on the ground. Drip, drip, blood dripped from the corner of his mouth. The leader covered his face and slowly stood up. At that moment, the air seemed to freeze, and the battlefield fell into a strange silence. Both friend and foe could not help but look over. The leader of the germinal organization always wore a black metal mask. His identity was extremely mysterious, and almost no one had seen his true face. To be able to lead such a huge force, he should be a famous figure. The intelligence agencies of various countries had many guesses about his identity. The germinal organization was established during the War of the Old Era, So the most likely guess was that the leader was an expert from the old era who changed his appearance. Han Xiao could not help but look over. In his previous life, until the germinal organization disappeared in the river of history, the players did not discover the identity of the leader, so he did not know the true origin of the leader. The leader put down his hand, and what appeared in front of everyone was an ugly face with crisscrossing scars, as if there were centipedes crawling under his skin. These scars were irregular in shape, as if they had been bitten and scratched by fierce beasts. This was a completely unfamiliar face. Although the appearance was terrible, the outline was still recognizable. Han Xiao was sure that he had not seen this face in the backlog of information. He looked at the strong people of the Six Nations and Bennett, and they were all confused. No one knew the leader. Bennett frowned. He was a legend from the old era. He had an impression of all the powerful beings from the past, even those who had died in battle or of old age. However, he had no impression of the leader's face at all. There were only 3 possibilities for this. First, the leader also wore a mask. Second, he had undergone plastic surgery to hide his identity. Third, he was not an active, strong person of the old era and had been keeping a low profile. His face was exposed, but the leader was expressionless, as if he did not care. No one knows him. Then is he wearing a mask because he is afraid that this face will affect the morale? Han Xiao frowned. The leader's appearance was so ugly that it could make people cry. If he didn't wear a mask, he would probably have a morale -20 debuff aura. The battle was not over yet, so Han Xiao tossed his doubts to the back of his mind. There were still 30 seconds before Viper's last breath. Without wasting any time, he dragged his war hammer and sprinted. Using the inertia, he swung the power war hammer horizontally. Bang, bang, bang. The fist wrapped in black and purple flames clashed with the war hammer crazily, and the muffled sound of iron being struck rang out continuously. The leader's eyes were sharp. He could tell that Han Zhao's mecha was on the verge of breaking down and would not be able to hold on for long. A mechanic without a mecha and equipment was like a tiger without teeth and claws. Drag. He switched to a defensive stance and allowed Han Zhao's warhammer to dance vigorously. Under the fierce beating of the storm, he was as tough as a reef. His body, which had been tempered countless times, collided with the sturdy metal warhammer. The strong wind blew up dust and sand like waves. Crackle. 30 seconds later, Viper let out an ominous sound. Pieces of components fell to the ground one after another like withered petals. The entire mecha had broken down. Han Xiao had revealed his true form. Huh! The leader roared and instantly switched from a defensive stance to a frenzied attack. The strength that he had accumulated exploded, and he hit Han Zhao's abdomen with his full strength. He had already used his armor-piercing skill, and the force behind it could penetrate through his organs. Bang! Boom! This attack caused 2 sounds. The palm hit Han Zhao's body, and the first sound was muffled. The second sound passed through Han Zhao's body and created a shockwave behind him. The sound was like the explosion of a cannonball, causing one's eardrums to buzz. The shockwave was 10 times louder than the first sound. The sand behind Han Xiao was plowed into an inverted triangular-shaped pit that went from deep to shallow. The impact was huge, but Han Zhao's body only swayed a little. He did not even take half a step back. He actually managed to withstand the attack. How did you? The leader was shocked and extremely surprised. How could a mechanic withstand his fist with his body? Chapter 259. No pop-up window. Free to read. The leader was heavily injured, and the germinal organization was in a mess. The situation suddenly changed. Some of the troops rushed over to protect the leader, while others were still fighting with the reinforcements. The situation suddenly became chaotic. The experts of the Six Nations seized the opportunity and worked together to create a gap in the encirclement. They drove 3 cars and broke through the blockade. Get in the car quickly, Tang Tang shouted. The convoy was about to pass by Han Xiao. This was the best opportunity to get in the car. Han Xiao looked in the direction of the leader. The reinforcements were blocking the leader behind them. On one side was the leader, who had 14% of his health left and could not be killed in a short period of time. On the other side was the convoy that was about to break through the enemy's formation. The opportunity to end this operation was fleeting. If they delayed any longer, they would be caught again. Han Shao was not afraid. With his current strength, he could defeat the germinal organization alone. However, other than Bennett, the reinforcements were all injured. If they continued to fight, there would definitely be deaths. He was the target of the reinforcements' protection, but now he was the one protecting these helpers. Han Shao did not know whether to laugh or cry. He changed his mind and made a rational choice. The traitors' counterattack mission has been completed. My job is done. As long as I give the information to the Six Nations, let them worry about what happens next. He did not want to kill the leader anymore. It did not matter to him whether he killed the leader or not. The convoy passed by, and the door opened. Han Shao immediately jumped into the car and drove away. The germinal organization's troops were completely left behind this time. They were gradually shrinking in his vision. It's over. Han Shao finally heaved a sigh of relief. The leader had missed this opportunity and could not stop him anymore. This time, it was really over. In this operation, he had brought Aurora and Hela out of the headquarters, stolen a mechanic-class advanced knowledge, and obtained a bunch of crucial information that could decide the outcome of the battle. He had fought his way out and revealed his true colors. His legendary points were basically stable, and he had refreshed the player's impression of him. He had killed countless germinal organization supers, successfully broke through the limit of version 1.0, and finally defeated the leader. He was about to obtain 2 of his abilities. Although he had encountered danger time and time again, he had earned a lot. Han Xiaoxin suddenly wanted to see the expression on the leader's face, so he stuck his head out of the window and looked back. On a sand dune in the distance, the leader clutched his chest and swayed unsteadily. His figure was bleak. Looking into the distance, Han Shao and the leader looked at each other. The leader was expressionless. His fanfare was futile. He should have been excited, but Han Shao saw a complicated emotion in his eyes. There was only pain, discouragement, dejection, and an indescribable sense of relief. It was as if he had exhausted his will to fight and no longer had the strength to feel hatred and anger. Han Shao was a little puzzled. He was suddenly curious about the experiences of the leader, leading the germinal organization, raising the flag of overthrowing the ideals of the Six Nations. Why did he do all this? What kind of person was he? Ambitious? Cruel and vicious? No bottom line. They had been enemies for so long, but in reality, he knew very little about the leader. Right, I don't even know his name yet. Han Shao paused for a moment before looking over again. The leader also looked at him from afar. This exchange of glances was like pressing the pause button, freezing time and space. It was like turning into a painting. This was the first time he had met the leader face to face. It was also the last time. Later, the experts of the Six Nations present repeated the experience of the operation and leaked it to the world. After the war ended, the various countries found that this was the turning point of the entire war. The last gaze between Zero and the leader was of great historical significance, and it was recorded in the history of Blue Star. At night, the stars were bright and the moon was bright. The bright Milky Way hung high in the sky, and the clear silver light shone on the hills. There was no need for any other source of light to see clearly at night. 3 cars were parked at the top of a hill, hidden in the sparse forest. The engines were off, and the surroundings were quiet. Everyone got out of the cars and sat on one side, munching on dry food, bandaging their wounds, and whispering to each other. After the fierce battle in the day, everyone decided to stop and rest. After driving out of the desert, they came to this hill. Further out was the edge of the battlefield between the Six Nations and the Germinal Organization. The Germinal Organization's control in this area was limited, and the defense was not as tight as in the hinterland. The pursuit team mobilized by the leader had suffered heavy losses, and the road ahead was already smooth. This time, there would be no more accidents. Chapter 260. No pop-up window. Free to read. You have received recoil, thorns. You have received steel body. A wave of numbness flowed through his entire body like an electric current. Han Zhao's spirit was lifted. He stretched out his arms and felt that his body had become stronger. He clenched his fist and pounded his chest twice, making a thick, muffled sound. I'm walking further and further down the road of being a meat shield. Han Xiaoxin was very happy, very satisfied with this round of harvest. This was the second molding ability that he had obtained. True damage ignored defense reduction and directly dealt damage to the interface. For example, the theoretical damage of an attack was 100 points, but when it actually landed on the target, it would be reduced by the target's defense. True damage, on the other hand, ignored defense and directly dealt 100 points of damage. With this ability, his HP would be more secure, and he would become more and more like a boss. After tidying up his attribute interface and leveling up Magnetic Ring Mechanic to the max level, he still had 125 million EXP left. He then leveled up the two new skills, Machinery Continuation and Recoil, Thorns, to the max level and spent another 13 million EXP. He also obtained 2 more potential points. The more potential points, the better. These 2 abilities were very useful. Machinery Continuation was not worth mentioning. Its effect was comparable to a mechanical Viagra. Recoil, Thorns could be used as a strong defensive skill. When faced with an attack that was too strong, it could be used to offset a portion of the damage. Magnetic Ring Mechanic had been maxed out, and a new class advancement condition had appeared. As expected, Han Zhao's eyes flashed. The class advancement requirements for certain stages of the main class were fixed. He currently had 4 stages of the Mechanic class: Mechanic Novice, Mechanic Apprentice, Mechanic Trainee, and Magnetic Ring Mechanic. The class advancement requirements for all Mechanic class players were the same. Only by learning enough advanced knowledge and having a high enough intelligence could one enter the next stage. My intelligence attribute is 321 points, and my free attribute attribute is 40 points. In that case, I'm still 39 points away from the requirement. That's why I need to look for a subclass and grind my level to level 80. Even though he had put all his points into intelligence, he still could not meet the requirements for the class advancement. As for the mechanic players who did not know, they could only bitterly look for more subclasses. The level cap in version 20 was level 90. The higher the level, the more experience required to level up the subclass. Therefore, if the subclass requirements were not met, they would have to pay a higher price. If the subclass took up too much of the total level, their combat strength. In his previous life, there were some players who only met the requirements to change their class after reaching level 80. Their main class had only leveled up a few times before they reached the upper limit of the version. Unsurprisingly, PvP was the place that these players hated the most. Han Xiao threw all 40 free attribute points into intelligence and muttered, "I also need to find a subclass. My strength has already surpassed the version requirement, so there's no need to rush to level up. It's best to find a rare subclass. That way, I'll have more free attribute points and complete the class change requirement with the lowest level." He was not worried about the advanced knowledge. His growth speed had exceeded the version, which was why it was difficult to obtain the advanced knowledge. He would get it sooner or later. "Hey, Black Phantom, can you return my weapon to me?" Someone called out to him from behind. Pavalin walked over and asked. He was the mechanical pugilist who used the power hammer. The power hammer was still in Han Zhao's hands, and he had not returned it to him. Han Xiao turned around and said righteously, "Well, I've checked it before. Your weapon has a serious malfunction. I'll return it to you after I fix it." What he meant was, I'll return it to you after I figure out the blueprint. Pavalin had a suspicious look on his face. Malfunction? It was fine when I used it. It's a battle. Injuries are inevitable. This is a secret product of the Theseus military. My superiors told me not to leak it. Pavalin was troubled. Han Xiao was a mechanic, so he was very worried. Han Xiao said righteously, "That's not right. Do I look like that kind of person? We're teammates now." He did not feel guilty at all. Teammates had to be sold. Otherwise, what was the difference between him and a salted fish? Pavalin hesitated for a few seconds and sat back down helplessly. Chapter 261. No pop-up window. Free to read. Dark, damp. A rotten smell filled the air, and the cold air penetrated deep into the bones. In the pitch-black cave, a petite body curled up like a cub, shivering slightly. Aurora carefully tore open a bag of military biscuits. Her actions were very slow, and she had to pause for a while after tearing open every bit, worried that she would make a sound and attract the enemy. After opening the package, she took small bites of the hard biscuits, and it took her a long time to finish them. In reality, this little bit of sound would not come out of the cave, but she still remembered Han Zhao's instructions and did not dare to make sound. This is already the 13th meal. Aurora thought to herself. She did not know the passage of time in the cave, so she ate when she was hungry. She could only judge the time by the number of meals she ate. A pair of bright eyes were hidden in the darkness, looking in the direction of the cave entrance. In the cave, there was only a pile of supplies, the sound of breathing and heartbeat, and the weight that could not be seen. A few days later, at the Star Dragon front line on the battlefield south of Andrea, the fleet stopped inside the camp, and everyone sat or stood, waiting in boredom. Little sparks spun between her fingers like a fairy. After playing with it for a while, Anna asked impatiently, "We've been waiting for 22 days. We've been here for 22 hours. How much longer do we have to wait?" "Don't worry, it should be soon." Han Xiao puffed on the cigarette in his mouth. After breaking through the leader's ambush, there were no more accidents along the way. They successfully passed through the Germinal Organization's territory and arrived at the Six Nations territory. Their original destination was a temporary base of the Six Nations on the battlefield south, but Han Xiao suddenly requested to stop at this camp, saying that he was waiting for someone. Since they were already safe, the experts of the Six Nations naturally had no objections. The reason why they did not leave was because they still had a mission, which was to supervise Han Xiao to hand over the intelligence to the Six Nations. Because this was a very important matter, the Six Nations had to be prepared for any eventuality. On the side, Hela anxiously paced back and forth, looking at the entrance of the camp. The soldiers who passed by all looked at them with reverence. Normally, they would not see so many big shots. Suddenly, there was a commotion at the entrance of the camp. Hela stopped in her tracks and looked over nervously. The soldier on duty opened the door, and a man wearing a hooded robe slowly walked in while holding the hand of a little girl. The little girl's face was pale due to lack of nutrition. She looked around curiously, and when she saw Hela, she could not move her eyes away. They were Dean and Aurora. Hela strode forward and pulled Aurora into her arms. She hugged her tightly for a while until Aurora was almost out of breath. Then, she squatted down and touched Aurora's face. She carefully looked at her. Seeing that Aurora was unharmed, she immediately breathed a sigh of relief. Then, she saw Aurora's pale face and said apologetically, "I'm sorry. I will never leave you behind again." Aurora wiped her eyes with the back of her hand and revealed a big smile. His contagious smile seemed to brighten up the entire world. "I knew that you would definitely come and get me." Seeing that her sister was safe, Hela felt relieved. Suddenly, she felt that the wind was so gentle and the sun was so bright. The aura of freedom. On the other side, Dean found Han Xiao and said, "I did not disappoint you." Dean's stealth ability was the best for sneaking into all kinds of dangerous places. According to the coordinates given by Han Xiao, he found Aurora and brought her out. Ever since the failure to ambush Han Xiao, the Germinal Organization's alert level had plummeted, so the two of them were not in danger. "Thanks." Han Xiao nodded and smiled. "I'm sorry for making you take such a risk. I owe you one." "It's okay. You saved me once. Consider it my repayment." "It's nothing." Dean waved his hand. "And compared to you sneaking into the Germinal Organization's headquarters, this small matter is nothing." Han Xiao chatted for a while and got down to business. "Have you prepared the goods I asked for?" "According to your request, I have ordered my subordinates to pick up the goods from the warehouse and ship them directly to Southern Continent. You can get them when you go back." "Okay, I will settle the payment when the time comes." After chatting for a while, Dean left. Danny said helplessly, "Can we go now?" "Wait a moment." Han Xiao walked toward Hela and Aurora. The two sisters were still talking, but when he got closer, he suddenly heard Aurora ask a question. "Sister, where are we going next?" Aurora had a hopeful look on her face. Hella suddenly paused. Chapter 262. No pop-up window. Free to read. The intelligence included the location of all the nuclear warheads of the Germinal organization. If he dismantled these nuclear warheads, the Germinal organization's hand of death system would be useless. When he stole the intelligence from the Germinal organization headquarters, he wanted to hand it over to the Six Nations. The sooner the Germinal organization was destroyed, the sooner his grade a main mission, Dust of the Sleeping Seeds, could be completed. His current progress was 36.2%. Handing over this intelligence would deepen his role in the war to destroy the Germinal organization. The only intelligence he kept was the class advancement knowledge. Han Xiao was planning to sell this to the players to make a fortune. He was very familiar with controlling the source to monopolize the market. The representatives of the Six Nations stood up excitedly. "It's all top secret. With this intelligence, we can end this war early." "Well done." This intelligence would bring unimaginable benefits to the Six Nations. It was like two people playing cards. If one could see through the other's hand, the advantage would be obvious. The outcome of the war would change with this piece of intelligence. And the initiator of all this was Han Xiao, who was sitting at the end of the conference table, digging his ears. The representatives of the various nations looked at each other, and the atmosphere became silent. Han Xiao was very understanding and said, "Okay, I've given you the intelligence. It's up to you what you want to do. I'll leave first." He got up and left. After pushing open the door, he suddenly stopped and turned around. Seeing that everyone was indifferent, he could not help but say in disappointment, "Is there really no ambush?" The representatives' mouths twitched. "Ambush? How strong are you? Don't you have any idea? We still want to live until we retire, bastard." Gui wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. "Your intelligence is very important. You've helped us a lot. We need to have an emergency meeting, so you should leave quickly." The situation of the expedition war changed drastically in just a few days. The troops of the Six Nations advanced by leaps and bounds, as if they were on steroids. They defeated the enemy again and again like the autumn wind sweeping away the fallen leaves, obtaining great victories. In the four battlefields of the East, South, West, and North, the German organization was at a disadvantage. The entire world was paying attention to the battle and was shocked by the sudden change. After many inquiries, they found out that it was Han Xiao who had leaked the stolen information to the Six Nations. When Han Xiao's true identity was exposed some time ago, he was surrounded and became the focus of the battle between the Germinal organization and the Six Nations. Han Xiao was in the middle of the encirclement, and it was like he was in the eye of the wind, surrounded by an even stronger wind. The battles on the various fronts had reached a climax, and a large number of the Germinal organization's troops were being held back by the Six Nations. That was why they did not have enough troops, and the long-range bombing missiles launched into the sky were all intercepted by the Six Nations. At that time, the various forces had a premonition that if Han Xiao could escape, it would change the entire situation. As expected, he became the turning point of the entire war. He was the one who started the war in the dark, and the one who was going to end the war was also him. All the powers were astonished. He deserved the title of a legend. Because they had the upper hand in the war, the Six Nations also started to broadcast the situation of the war in their own countries to reassure the people and announce that the war was about to end. The people of the various countries all felt relieved, and the pressure on their countries was also relieved. Of course, the media could not avoid adding details to the Germinal organization's deeds. Although the Germinal organization was already bad enough, they still habitually added to it, emphasizing that the expedition was absolutely righteous, politically correct, and protecting the country. The Blue Star players were even more aware of the changes in the war, and the most direct feeling was that there were fewer missions. Originally, with Han Zhao's help, The conflict between the Six Nations and the Germinal organization had broken out earlier, so the players' influence on the storyline would be minimized. At least the players had something to do, but the war suddenly went smoothly. Now, even being a spectator had become a luxury, and the players were completely reduced to spectators. The Germinal organization players were an exception. Their missions had increased, and, at the same time, their experience of failing missions had increased. According to the increased ratio of the number of missions to the number of failures, they seemed to have suffered a loss. The players for both sides fought a lot. The Six Nations players were gloating on the forums, and the Germinal organization players were crying, but had no tears. Why? Black Phantom wants to hurt us again and again. Chapter 263. No pop-up window. Free to read. It was 10 minutes past the agreed time, but the power plant still hadn't exploded. The bandits were anxious. Have the people who blew up the power plant been caught? We haven't heard from them for so long. The Crooked Mouth Man made a few phone calls, but they were all busy. No one answered. His accomplices were obviously thinking of retreating. We've been exposed. Let's go quickly. If the people who blew up the power plant are caught, they will expose us. The Crooked Mouth Man's eyes were fierce. He shouted in a low voice. What are you panicking for? Wealth comes from danger. How can we come here for nothing? This was obviously a group of low-level bandits, but at the same time, they were extremely daring. After waiting for a while, they finally found an opportunity. The patrolling guards crossed each other, and there was only one guard left at the gate. The Crooked Mouth Man pointed at one of his men. You, go and assassinate that guard. The man who was pointed at stepped out unwillingly. He tiptoed and carefully approached the patrolling guard. His hand was holding the handle of the dagger behind his waist. He was trembling nervously, and the tip of his nose was sweating. Although the enemy only had one patrolling guard, he was still equipped with a gun. The guard turned his head and saw a figure sneakily approaching within 20 meters. He immediately shouted, "Who's there?" Luo was scared. He quickly stood up straight and said in a panic, I'm just passing by. After that, he ran back with a face full of fear. He said with a sad face, Boss, I've been discovered. Useless. The Crooked Mouth Man said angrily. He took out a crude handgun from his waist and handed it to another man. He shouted, You go. This handgun has a limited range of 25 meters. Kill the guard for me. Luo swallowed his saliva and walked over with the gun in his hand. When he was about 20 meters away, the guard found a figure again. Who's there? Luo was scared. I'm out for a walk. The guard saw the outline of the gun in Luo B's hand. He said vigilantly, What are you holding in your hand? This. Luo was quick-witted. He raised his head and put the gun near his eyes. He said in a panic, This is a telescope. I use it to admire the moon. Then he also ran back like a puff of smoke. On the other side, Madblade and the other three were puzzled. What were these people doing back and forth? The Crooked Mouth Man was flustered and exasperated. Trash. All of them were trash. Give me the gun. I'll do it myself. Grabbing the gun, the Crooked Mouth Man quickly walked towards the guard. The guard was already vigilant, so he immediately asked, but just as the first word came out of his mouth, the Crooked Mouth Man brazenly opened fire. The gunshot was loud, and the bullet hit the guard's shoulder. The guard cried out in pain and fell to the ground. The Crooked Mouth Man added 2 more shots, and this time the guard was seriously injured and lost the ability to fight. Hurry up and move the things. The Crooked Mouth Man called out, and all of his underlings followed. At this time, in the vision of Madblade and the other 3, the bandits had turned red. The mission was to capture the bandits alive and hand them over to the shelter guards. If they were enemies, it would be easy to deal with them. Players were best at fighting monsters. Hao Tion took the lead, and Madblade followed closely behind. The 4 of them rushed out. The bandits were shocked and hurriedly took out their weapons to block. However, in just one exchange, half of them were knocked over by the 4 of them. Inhumans, they're all Inhumans. The 4 of them knocked over all the bandits like they were cutting vegetables, and only the Crooked Mouth Man was left. He held the gun and shivered. Don't come any closer, or I'll shoot. I'm really going to shoot. Suddenly, the ground trembled slightly, and more than a dozen red dots lit up in the darkness. They quickly approached and showed their true appearance. Sixth generation 25 Rangers surrounded the scene, and their black muzzles were locked onto everyone. In important places like warehouses and power plants, the Rangers created by Han Shao were the real defense force. They were always on standby. Once they detected gunshots or someone broke through the security zone without permission, they would immediately go from standby to combat mode and attack like awakened beasts. Sanctuary 3 was Han Zhao's territory, and it was heavily guarded. It was not a place that any Tom, Dick, or Harry could mess around. The change was too sudden, and everyone was shocked. Mad Blade and the others recognized that the Rangers were created by Han Shao. Pork Bun quickly said, "Don't open fire, we're on the same side." However, once the Rangers were activated, the order was to kill everyone in the security zone. Plus, the chip of the Rangers did not have the ability to process voice commands. The next second, bullets rained down, and the bandits in Mad Blade's group of 4 were all shot. The bandits were all turned into sieves. Chapter 264. The Pro League was divided into many different modes, and the arena was naturally the most suitable for single elimination matches and individual matches. According to Han Technician's experience, if there was a ready-made arena, the chances of the Pro League being held in his territory were quite high. After all, the arenas for the first Pro League in his previous life were all built by the players themselves. Although it sounded like a bunch of bullsh**, doing it personally made the players feel great. If the Pro League was held in his territory, the status of the main city would be even more stable. It would also bring in a lot of people. In Han Technician's eyes, they were all potential customers. He was aiming for the Pro League to make a fortune. The temporary status enhancement potions in his hands would definitely sell well in this kind of situation. However, there was a small problem. The Pro League would be held around the time when the first batch of players reached level 60. If he had to wait for the Pro League to start, he would have to stay in Blue Star for quite some time. I'll just treat it as preparing for the interstellar journey. Besides, I have to wait for an opportunity, Han Shao thought to himself. It was not that easy to leave a planet. In version 0, all the novice planets did not have the usual channels to travel to the interstellar. If it was a novice planet that had more contact with interstellar civilizations, he might have been able to think of a few simple methods. For example, on Winterfrost, the Void Demons had interstellar battleships. Han Technician might have been able to find a way to get one. However, on Blue Star, the countries here could not even build stable interstellar spaceships. The chances of flying into the sky and standing shoulder to shoulder with the sun were very slim. However, it was not completely hopeless. Ever since he decided to leave planet Aquamarine in version 0, he began to search for all kinds of details in his memory. After a long time of thinking, he really did find a few unexpected opportunities, but he had to wait for those things to happen naturally before the opportunity presented itself. Therefore, he really did have the time to wait for the Pro League to start. At that time, the Pioneers will basically be at level 60. If I don't find a suitable subclass, I should still be at level 70. Han Shao was not worried at all. His strength was one version higher, and he had the BSS template. With all kinds of machinery and combat skills, even if there were players who wanted to die, he would be able to kill a group of 40 people by himself. However, once the strength of the players increased, the other forces would be dumbfounded. They would view the Inhumans as a great enemy, and the situation of Blue Star would change again. Only he was as steady as an old dog. Aurora timidly hid behind Hela. It was the first time that she had seen so many people. She was shocked and was not used to it. "This is your territory?" Hela raised her eyebrows in surprise. She never thought that there would be so many Inhumans here. Moreover, it seemed that Han Shao had a huge influence among the Inhumans. She found it hard to understand this point. Because Han Shao had been in the limelight recently, the Blue Star section on the forums was in full swing. The players in the Sanctuary all wanted to see him up close. Along the way, there were players everywhere, and there were eager and thirsty gazes from all directions. He inexplicably felt like he was on a parade. If it weren't for the guards clearing the way, he always felt that these hungry players would have pounced on him together. When they returned to the upper level of the sanctuary, it was finally quiet. Han Xiao settled the two down and said, "Huang Yu, arrange 2 rooms for them. They will live here from now on." He thought about it and changed his mind. "Never mind. 1 room is enough. Please follow me." Huang Yu extended his hand and led the 2 of them away. After the few of them left, he was the only one left in the room. Han Xiao laid on the bed to rest for a while, then closed the door and windows, locked himself in the study, picked up a pen, and wrote down the focus of his next move on a piece of paper. Since he was preparing to leave the planet, he naturally had to list the various opportunities on Blue Star. He also wrote down the opportunities to leave the galaxy in detail, adding from time to time to prevent himself from missing any details. Finally, the tip of the pen paused. "So, I want to earn as much EXP as possible from the players on Blue Star, because after leaving the planet, it means that I won't have any interactions with the players in the short term. In order to maintain my influence, I have to do my best to improve the players' main city, add various functions, and provide convenient transportation. Then, the players who are active in the main city will think of me from time to time. I might as well build a statue to remind them." He burned the paper full of words to ashes, not leaving any clues. It was already late at night, and Han Xiao went to another house. This was the special residence that he had arranged for Madblade and the other 3. This treatment was not given to the other players. Madblade was the only one left in the house. He had been waiting for Han Xiao, and he was overjoyed immediately and greeted him. "Just you." Han Xiao looked left and right, then set a simple mission with rich rewards and threw it to Madblade. Finally, he was rewarded again. Madblade was overjoyed. Following Black Phantom gave him a bright future. This mission was so interesting. Singing and dancing gave him EXP. The other missions were so lame. The Pro League was coming, and Han Xiao was also preparing to train these few close players so that they could perform better in the Pro League. Han Technician was quite generous to his own people. After all, these players had helped him a little. At the same time, if they had more stable results, the other players would believe that there were benefits to following him. Now, his mission reward limit had also increased, and he could satisfy the needs of more players. The total daily reward was 7 times more than the single mission reward, which was around 800,000 EXP. It was very generous. Han Xiao was a little envious. If only he could have the EXP limit, he would not have to worry about EXP. Unfortunately, this method did not work. Sigh, I still have to take advantage of the players. After spending an entire day dealing with the miscellaneous matters, Dean's supplies finally arrived. Following which, Han Xiao locked himself in the workshop and began his closed-door training to organize his gains. The German organization's mechanic class advanced knowledge this is one of the most important knowledge for mechanics. It allows the control of machines to be upgraded. As long as the corresponding chip program is written, it can read the brain signals and send out commands. The speed of thinking is much faster than speaking or using hand gestures. He spent some potential points to upgrade to level 5. Basic knowledge required 1 potential point to upgrade. Advanced knowledge required 2 potential points, and so on. The cost was getting higher and higher. Therefore, Han Xiao had been hoarding potential points and only used them on the most important knowledge. The first task was to recreate the mechanical suit that had been destroyed. This time, Han Xiao did not plan to copy the mechanical suit completely according to the blueprint. He wanted to add his own creativity on top of this foundation to create an enhanced version of the mechanical suit. He already had a draft in mind. There was a large pile of parts and supplies beside the lathe. Han Xiao counted them, rubbed his hands, and smiled confidently. Time to work. The 7th day, Chi, accompanied by the sound of cold air leaking, the metal cooling box opened. Inside was a transparent, high-strength glass, cylindrical box filled with light blue liquid. Han Xiao removed the synthetic repair gel, used to cool down and speed up the fusion. A brand new battle suit appeared in front of him, still emitting white cold air. It's finally done. I'm so tired. Han Xiao felt refreshed. He rubbed his cheeks vigorously to relieve the slight tiredness from staying up for a few days straight. The new generation battle suit still used the core principle of Viper Modified. It was filled with PE0 nanofiber muscles and provided torque along with movement. It could still increase strength and agility, and none of the original weapon modules were missing. The outer appearance was the same style as Viper Modified. The dark suit was dotted with blue energy transmission pipes. The structure was more precise and complicated, and the whole body was streamlined. However, there were some changes. The size was larger, and the edges were more defined, like protruding scales. The overall feeling was completely different. If Viper Modified was like a small, poisonous snake hunting, the new generation battlesuit was like a black python waiting for its prey in the shadows. It was fine if it did not move, but when it moved, it would strike like lightning. Ferocious. Dangerous. In reality, Han Technician could have copied Viper Modified in 3 days, but this time he took 7 days. Chapter 265. The energy core was still the bonfire reactor, located about 5 centimeters below his neck. After his advancement, his machinery affinity and technology had both increased, so he strengthened the reactor. Furthermore, he installed a few hidden grooves on the back of the mechanical suit that connected to the energy core. Energy blocks could be embedded in the grooves. If the reactor ran out of energy, these would be backup energy sources. There was another use, which was to increase the power output and increase the performance of the combat suit like overload. The energy blocks were naturally the elementary energy crystals that he had refined from the radiation crystals he had collected from the Shadow Stalker Viper's nest. Yi-Yeching was trying to turn the crystals into a renewable resource, but she had not succeeded yet. However, the few hundred pounds of crystals that Han Shao had saved up were enough. The armor was a new alloy that he had synthesized from advanced materials. It was called Ali Steel Alloy, and its defense was even higher than platinum alloy. The control method was the new Nerves Link. The helmet was equipped with a module that could read the signals of the neurons. It was embedded in the helmet like a metal patch, and the various functions of the mechanical suit could be controlled with just a thought. The weapon module had undergone a technical innovation, and Han Shao had put in the most effort. The new module that he paid the most attention to was a large mounted component that was 5 to 6 meters long when extended horizontally. This was a mounted mechanical wing that was embedded in the back, shoulders, and arms. The original version was the Cloud Swallow Glider. The wing was wide, and there was a circular 3-stack propeller with a radius of 60 to 70 centimeters on each side. It was a rotary turbine engine that could rotate 360 degrees. The electromagnetic hover boots could run up, and the small maneuvering device could take off, glide, and provide continuous power. He had given the new generation of the combat suit the ability to fly. Which man did not want to fly freely? The romance of a man was like a corpse sinking into the sea or a sea of stars. Successful. You have successfully improved lightweight mechanical suit. Viper. Do you want to give a new name? With a flash of inspiration, a suitable name appeared in Han Zhao's mind. Naming successful. You have received the blueprint, lightweight mechanical suit, Amphiptera. My naming skills are indeed not for show. Han Shao was very satisfied. Amphiptera was a snake that could fly. Amphiptera type, combat suit individual lightweight mechanical suit quality. Dark green basic stats. 8, 950/8, 950 defense. 164 power level. 818 energy. 4,300 plus 800 height. 1. 87 meters weight. 176 LB control method. Low-level smart chip plus nerve link plus 10 DX. Energy. Mini bonfire reaction furnace. Enhanced. Recharges automatically. Restores 35 energy every minute. If energy is used as fuel, 24/S of energy consumed and 32/S of energy recovered. Energy reserve. 4 basic energy blocks can be replaced at any time. 800 energy reserve standby mode consumption. 22 energy/min combat mode consumption. 40 energy / min core power output, 787 / 850 armor module, U9 colloidal bulletproof membrane, green, plus 2,400 armor, plus 45 defense, none outer layer module. Optical camouflage, able to refract light to a certain extent. Power, 20 outer layer module. SUI anti-radar coating, electromagnetic interference coating scout module. Vulture, tactical scanning lens. Smart fire control, assisted targeting, internal tactical holographic observation screen. Power, 40 palm module. Thermal cutting gauntlet, purple. Inflicts high temperature damage over time. Energy consumption, 1.5/S. Energy output, 101 power output, 60 back module. Electromagnetic thermal cutting blade, green. Applies electromagnetic high-temperature technology to split magnetic chain split blade. Energy consumption, 1/S. Power, 80 wrist module. Directional repulsive field driver, blue. Releases repulsive waves 150 degrees in front. Range, 20 meters. Cool down, 30 seconds. Energy consumption, 15 power output, 70 arm module. Sunworm small flamethrower, purple. Energy consumption, 1.5/S. Energy output, 104 power output, 60 leg module. Electromagnetic powered floating boots, purple. Energy consumption, 6.2 per minute. Power output, 55 propulsion module. Small maneuvering equipment, purple. Energy consumption, 1.4 per minute. Power output, 162 survival module. Body condition monitor, temperature maintenance system, gravity stabilizer, air storage, and filtration device. Power output, 80 launch module. Explosive grenade X-24, mini-split drill bomb X-16. Power output, 60 chip module. Analysis database, battle trajectory prediction, combat assistance. Power output, 30 chip module. Neuron signal conversion command. Power output, 20 accessory module. Rapid injection needle. Equipped with painkiller, stimulant, healing agent. Power output, 10 accessory module. Small spider detector X-12. No power output accessory module. Electromagnetic pulse controller. Grants excited status. Plus 5% to all attributes. Duration, 15 minutes. Energy consumption, 5 per use. Power output, 10 accessory module. Poison tendrils limb component. Creates suction force that allows the mechanical suit to be attached to objects. Power output, 20 accessory module. Small sensor radar. Power output, 30 mountable module. Iron fist heavy mechanical arm, purple. Power output, 91 mountable module. Bat wing, turbine flight device. Power output, 326 accessory ability, strong performance. In battle mode, more energy is allocated to the biochemical tendons, creating more power output. Plus 40 STR, plus 20x accessory ability. Snake Devil consumes all energy in one go, causing the energy core to be overloaded. The mechanical suit enters a special state. All attributes are multiplied, plus 156 STR, plus 110 DX. All modules are considered to be free of energy consumption. Duration, 2 to 7 minutes. Cooldown, 7 days. Accessory ability. Suction armor is made of olisite alloy. This alloy has the property of dispersing stress points, plus 22% damage reduction. Note, are you stupid? I could go to heaven. With a full set of purple modules, the attributes of Soaring Serpent had reached 2.0. Han Xiao put his hands on his hips and admired his work. He was so F***ing awesome. With Soaring Serpent and my attributes, no one in the blue star can threaten me. This mechanical suit can be used in the galaxy. It could be considered as one of my early preparations. Han Xiao had foresight. In the eyes of the players, he had made a super powerful early-stage equipment. Wearing this mechanical suit was like using a sledgehammer to crack a nut on a novice planet. Soaring Serpent had only locked onto his nerve signals, and he was the only one who could control it. The advanced knowledge, nerve connection, was the foundation to control more complex machinery. The speed of thinking was far faster than normal control methods. Furthermore, if there were any injuries, nerve connection could also be used on the cloak technology. Of course, Han Xiao did not wish for such a day to come. Furthermore, nerve connection had another key function in his eyes. One had to know that players relied on the virtual gaming cabin to enter Galaxy, and the core principle of the gaming cabin was to transfer the player's thoughts. Then, what would happen if the player's thoughts were transferred to a local NPC clone body? Would the players be trapped in Galaxy like him? Would they be resurrected after death? If they could be resurrected, would they use the original player body or a new body? Or could there be other phenomena? From his perspective, he could feel that everything here was real. However, he had never let go of his doubts and kept paying attention to the forum. He wanted to see if his account in his previous life had appeared, but he did not find anything. What is the reason for this? Is it the butterfly effect? Did the previous me change my account? It's not unreasonable. I just casually created the account back then. Or is there another possibility? Han Zhao's eyes flickered. To be honest, he was looking forward to interacting with his previous self face to face. It would definitely be a novel feeling. He did not understand. If I want to understand the truth, I still have to start from the players. Nerve connection alone is not enough to create a gaming cabin or a mind transfer device. I need more knowledge. Han Xiao suppressed the doubts in his heart. Chapter 266. You've been losing blood all year round, causing your body to be weak, stunted, and organ functions to deteriorate. Optimistically, you can live for another 3 years. In the potion lab, Yeching was wearing a pair of rimless glasses as a doctor. She checked Aurora's body and came up with such a pessimistic result. Without waiting for their expressions to change, she immediately changed her words. Of course, I'm talking about normal people. Although your body is weak, your cell activity is something I've never seen before. As she spoke, Yeching took out a few photos under the microscope and said excitedly, "Normally, the self-healing of the human body is very slow. The intact cells slowly divide into new cells to repair the damage. In comparison, the self-healing ability of supers is stronger. They can heal by converting energy or absorbing other energy. For example, I can absorb the life energy of plants to heal my injuries. Regardless of whether it's a normal person or a super, self-healing requires energy and nutrients. And your cells are equivalent to a drop of extremely concentrated life energy, which can strengthen the self-healing ability of others hundreds of times. Your hair, blood, and all the other body tissues are equivalent to extremely powerful healing agents. How strong are your cells? Let me give you an example. A normal person's cell is a bowl of cold water, a normal super cell is a flame, and your cell is a star. There's no comparison. Your cells actually have signs of self-reaction. Each cell is like a condensed star in its prime. Its activity is automatically increasing at every moment. However, such terrifying activity is not corrosive at all. It only has a beneficial effect on life forms. It is simply inconceivable. Emerald Grass's heart was itching unbearably. Her eyes lit up as she stared at Aurora. The burning gaze made Aurora shrink closer to Hela. She recognized this gaze. All the white coats of the Germinal organization looked at her like this. I want to collect some of your blood as an experiment material. Do you know no? Hela rejected decisively. Her eyes were not friendly, and she was ready to attack at any time. Aurora was her reverse scale. She would not allow anyone to violate it. Han Xiao crossed his arms in front of his chest and sat at the table next to him. He interrupted helplessly. I admire your attitude. Science is about continuous improvement. You must always have the ambition to master the core technology. But this is a patient, not for you to do research on. Besides, I don't think you can beat this redhead. Yeching pursed her lips and turned around to pack up the diagnostic equipment. She casually said, she doesn't need to see a doctor at all. Her superpower has been suppressed for too long and can't be used effectively. As long as she doesn't die, her superpower will gradually recover and let her return to normal. Even, forget it. Anyway, she just needs to rest for a while, and her body will recover, and the scars will disappear. Han Xiao raised his eyebrows. He could tell that Yi Yeching was implying something, so he started a plan. In his previous life, Aurora had been reduced to a pulp, so he didn't have the opportunity to see the exact effects of her superpower. He also didn't know what it would be like when it matured. Since she's Hella's sister, Aurora shouldn't be too bad. Maybe she can control life? Han Xiao started to make wild guesses. If he wanted to know Aurora's condition, he would have to use battle information. At the very least, he would have to slap this poor little girl. With his strength, the result would not be good. Han Xiao naturally wouldn't do that, and Hella would definitely fight him to the death. Hella breathed a sigh of relief. She stood behind Aurora and pressed her hands on her shoulders, gently squeezing them. It was good that her sister is fine. Right? She was brainwashed before and gave birth to another personality. She will be triggered by keywords and become a puppet that will only listen to orders. Do you have a solution? Han Xiao repeated what Cyberlo said. I'm a pharmacist, not a psychiatrist. You should find a professional. Yi Yeching didn't even turn around. But from my experience, if it's a normal brainwashing method, if it's not triggered and deepened for a long time, the thought seal will gradually fade over time until it disappears. That's why the guards on Bell of Death Island brainwash the prisoners every once in a while. But as you know, the people there are very strong, and brainwashing is not very effective. Instead, every time this happens, there will always be prisoners who will kill a few guards to relieve their boredom. Professional? Han Xiao touched his chin and pondered. Suddenly, he looked at Hella. Isn't the mind Hella's strength? Noticing his gaze, Hella waved her hand and frowned. My superpower is too invasive. I'm afraid of making a mistake, so I can't take the risk. Then you better develop your superpower more. Han Xiao was helpless. In his impression, Hella, at her peak, could easily flatten the soul of a living being into all kinds of shapes without damaging the fragile soul. It was like blowing candy. If there's nothing else, let's go. I still have a few Inhumans to test the potion. Don't disturb me. The few of them turned to look. Emerald Grass took out a transparent container filled with a strange liquid. It was a viscous green color and was still bubbling. She held a syringe and flicked the tip of the needle with her fingernail. Oh, I forgot to mention. In a technological civilization, Yi Yeching was called a pharmacist. In the magic civilization, pharmacists were called witches. Han Xiao silently observed 3 seconds of silence for the players who had tested the potion. Sacrificing for the advancement of science, how noble. After leaving the potion lab, the few of them slowly walked on the road. Hella suddenly turned around and asked seriously, what do you think? Only when it came to Aurora did Hella seem to be very concerned. She was no longer expressionless and cold. Because she trusted Han Xiao, she asked for his opinion. As the saying goes, half of the military medal is yours and half of the medal is mine. Han Xiao descended from the heavens and saved Aurora from the sea of suffering. Now, they had no relatives in the world. Only Han Xiao could be trusted. Han Xiao pinched his chin and said, it's best for her to rest. I'll make a special wheelchair for her. Also, your sister has been locked up for so long. It's best to let her get in touch with the outside world and make some new friends. If you don't trust me, I can introduce a few good, law-abiding teenagers. Hella nodded solemnly. I owe you. You owe me in the first place. Han Xiao picked his ear. Hella was at a loss for words. She shook her head and remembered the favor in her heart. She had a cold personality. In fact, she was a cold-blooded and proud person. She did not like to accept the kindness of others and was unwilling to accept help that was like charity. However, once she owed a favor, she would remember it in her heart. She was a person of action. She would not say too many words of gratitude. She would only secretly remember the kindness of helping others in their hour of need and wait for the day to return the favor to Han Xiao. After a moment of silence, Hella asked the question that had always been on her mind. Why did you save my sister? Foresight. Han Xiao used this all-purpose reason. Then what did you foresee? Hella frowned. Han Xiao laughed and made up a story. I saw your sister's ability. It will save my life in the future. Do you believe me? That makes sense. Hella suddenly understood. At this time, a small hand tugged at the corner of Han Zhao's clothes. He looked down and saw Aurora looking up at him with a serious face. Uncle Zero, I will definitely save you. Aurora took his words seriously. Han Xiao pinched her face and laughed. Zero is in the past tense. Just call me Han Xiao. Okay, Uncle Han. You can call me younger. Got it, Uncle Han. Han Xiao rolled his dead fish eyes. Sure enough, I still hate little kids. The next day, Han Xiao rushed to make a wheelchair and gave it to Aurora. Leather armrests and cushions lined with elastic cotton. It will give you the comfort of your mother's embrace. And the most amazing thing is, Han Xiao lifted the dust-proof cloth and said, this wheelchair is driven by pedals. It has a built-in small engine, and there's a gear shift lever beside the armrest. It can go up to 40 kilometers per hour. I only want an ordinary wheelchair. Hella's eyes twitched. She had never heard of a wheelchair that was driven by pedals. So what was the wheelchair used for? 40 kilometers per hour. Are you planning to hold a wheelchair rally race? Are you crazy? If I don't modify it, what kind of mechanic am I? Han Xiao picked his nose and looked at her from the corner of his eyes. Hella felt the disdain of a professional from his eyes. Aurora liked the wheelchair very much, as if she had gotten a new toy. At this time, Mad Blade and the others walked over from afar. Han Xiao called them over to play with Aurora and gave them a bunch of missions. He was worried that there was no suitable mission to train them. It was not like they could all sing and dance like Mad Blade. Playing with a little girl was much more reliable than singing and dancing. The 4 players were also very curious about the missions. The rewards were unbelievably generous. They thought that this was some kind of hidden mission and had a lot of fun doing it. Aurora got along the best. After a few words, the bear cub changed hands. It lay on Aurora's lap and rolled around on its belly, making Aurora giggle. The scene was full of warmth, as if the sun had coated it in a warm yellow color. Hella's eyes softened. She stepped aside and watched her sister play with her new friends. For the next few days, Aurora's smile became brighter and brighter, and her complexion improved at a visible rate. After settling Hella and her sister, the expedition war was getting better and better. The arena in the sanctuary was built during this time, so Han Zhao's attention immediately turned to business. He had 2 priorities. One was to prepare for leaving the planet and accumulate all kinds of resources. The second was to improve the player's main city and deepen his position in the hearts of the players, indirectly increasing his influence. He also planned for the Pro League, which was a huge business opportunity in his eyes. The similarity between the two was that he wanted to squeeze benefits out of the players. Ha ha ha. A creepy laughter echoed in the sealed room. Chapter 267. The Sanctuary issued a management rule that prohibited fighting anywhere, just like not being allowed to urinate and defecate. There were guards and rangers patrolling, and violators would be arrested and detained for a period of time. The main city of players needed to form a safe zone to make the players feel at ease. Han Technician asked Huang Yu to work overtime to perfect the rule. If the players wanted to PK, they could only leave the city or go to the arena. The arena was built near the square, very close to the respawn point of the players. Sometimes the players could stop when they were PK, and sometimes they would accidentally kill each other and lose some experience. Even so, it could not extinguish the players' desire to fight. Because it was very far away from the city, the arena became the first choice. The general structure of the arena was a huge square. In the center was the tallest and largest platform, and beside it were smaller arenas. The large arena was surrounded by a large number of spectator seats. Players didn't have to spend money, so they could PK as they pleased in the square. The arenas, big and small, were all sealed off. After asking around, I found out that those arenas were specially used for gambling. The gambling house was the arena, and it would only be open to those who paid, and the arena would be reserved for those who paid. Although this function was new, because it cost money and most of the players were poor, no one used this function for the time being. They only wanted to fight for free in the square, so the arena was very lively. It quickly became recognized as a dedicated PK arena, just like the city gate of a certain game. But in Huang Yu's opinion, this was a huge waste of resources. No one was willing to pay for it. Not only did it not achieve the effect of generating income, but the sanctuary also had to bear the cost of maintaining the arena. He felt that Han Zhao's decision was very problematic. It was better to let the Inhumans fight outside the city. He felt that building the arena was unnecessary, but he did not dare to go against Han Zhao, so he could only complain in his heart. This situation made Han Zhao a little surprised, but he understood after thinking about it. Now, the players are still in the exploration stage, and gambling in the arena is obviously only for players who are confident in their strength. Gambling in the arena can attract audience, so there will be exposure. Then, guilds and professional players are the most likely group to spend money to reserve the arena. The function of the arena required the players to discover it themselves, and it would take some time, but he was not someone who would wait patiently. Then let me give them a hand and help them understand what is the use of gambling in the arena. Han Zhao's eyes flashed. Every few days or so, Han Zhao would hang around in front of the players, teaching them skills and harvesting experience. Most of the skills that he put in the skill shop were basic skills that players already had. Spending EXP to train the basic skills that players had already learned could greatly increase their proficiency. It was more cost-effective than directly using EXP to level up skills. This was how Han Zhao obtained the majority of the players' EXP. He did not teach the important skills. After all, he wanted to maintain the gap between himself and the players. However, he chose to teach them some skills that were not that important or that the players would be able to learn sooner or later, such as electromagnetic energy extraction and precision repair, which were exclusive to mechanics, to help the mechanic class players improve their abilities. He acted as a mechanic teacher and attracted more players to join the mechanic class. One had to know that in the entire Blue Star, only the mechanic class players had such a reliable teacher like him. The players had experienced the energy training technique incident, so they roughly understood that the powerful skills that Han Zhao taught them could be learned when they reached a higher level. However, most people were still willing to learn high-level skills at a lower level because they could improve their current abilities and gain more benefits in the long run. As for the Esper class and Pugilist class advancement knowledge that he stole from the Germinal organization, Han Zhao did not sell it for the time being. This thing was like a bomb, and he wanted to wait until the players' purchasing power increased before making a huge profit. Every time he showed up to teach, he would earn more than 10 million EXP in a day, which was many times faster than doing missions. The tens of thousands of players in Sanctuary 3 made up about 5% of the total Blue Star players, and many new players had also entered the game, so the market potential was huge. The players' main city plan was very far away. On this day, Han Zhao appeared in the corner of the square, as usual, surrounded by players. After farming a wave of EXP, he suddenly saw a large group of guild players with prefixes above their heads. They were the players from Sky Territory, and the leader was called Yellow Sky Will Rise, the vice-captain of the first core group. My chance is here. Han Zhao raised his eyebrows slightly. After teaching the skills, he suddenly pretended to talk to himself and said, "Sigh, my luck has been bad recently." Yellow Sky Will Rise was shocked. As an experienced veteran player, under normal circumstances, if an NPC suddenly talked to himself, it meant that a new mission could be triggered. "Your Excellency Black Phantom, may I know what is troubling you? Maybe we can help you solve it." Yellow Sky Will Rise tried to ask. Glancing at him, Han Zhao pretended to be in a difficult position and shook his head. No, I need at least 10 people to help me." The people from Sky Territory were suddenly energized. It was indeed a mission, and it was a team mission. This was a mission given by Black Phantom himself. When had he ever cheated us? The guild had a lot of people, and Yellow Sky Will Rise formed a team of 10 people. Seeing this, Han Zhao said slowly, "Sigh, one of my robots has malfunctioned and is no longer under my control. I want you guys to bring its chip back to me." As he spoke, he set up a mission. Retrieve the malfunctioning chip -1. Mission type: Team Chain Mission Introduction. For some reason, a defense robot has malfunctioned and is no longer under control. First round requirement. Defeat X204 Ranger and return the chip to Black Phantom. First round reward. 25,000 EXP plus 1 Black Phantom favorability. A running mission? Yellow Sky Will Rise was pleasantly surprised. Just the first round reward was already quite a lot. If they continued, the rewards would definitely be even better, and they could even increase Black Phantom's favorability. One had to know that once Black Phantom's favorability reached 10, it would no longer increase no matter how much money was given. This was a rare opportunity. With regards to his favorability, all the players were in an extremely thirsty but helpless state. He had placed quite a few powerful machines in the item shop, blue equipment, purple equipment, and so on. However, the favorability requirement to purchase them was above 10 points, which meant that they could only be seen but not touched. They were the bait that he used to fish. Favorability itself was not valuable, but he gave it a value. This was the origin of equivalence and currencies. Sky Territory accepted the mission and left happily. The surrounding players saw this and also excitedly formed teams, but Han Xiao did not give them any face. This time, the players were puzzled. Why could Sky Territory trigger the mission, but they could not? However, they had already seen the randomness of Black Phantom's mission trigger mechanism, so they were not surprised and did not think too much about it. They could only secretly envy those lucky Europeans. Suddenly, a group of familiar IDs and guild names came into sight. Han Xiaoxin's mind moved. He then opened his mouth and repeated his words. There's a hidden mission? The Guild of Gods members passing by were surprised. The newcomers were the Guild of Gods, the official guild of the Temple of Gods Club. Han Xiao was very familiar with them, which was another target he was looking for. After Han Xiao's identity was exposed, the Guild of Gods and the others found out that the zero they were looking for was Han Xiao. It turned out that they had missed their target time and time again, so the mission naturally failed. Guild leader Jupiter was so angry that he could not eat or sleep well. He was so depressed that he almost had constipation. However, there was no other way. Han Xiao had too many benefits. In order to not fall behind the other guilds, the Guild of Gods could only come to the sanctuary no matter how depressed they were. All the other guilds had teams gathered in the sanctuary. This mission is not bad. Jupiter was overjoyed. He could even find a hidden mission while walking on the streets. This was his luck. With a wave of his hand, the Guild of Gods formed a team and accepted the mission. An hour later, in the North District of the sanctuary, a chase was in progress. A 10-man team from Sky Territory was panting as they chased a speedy ranger. Quick, chase it, don't let it get away. The Guild of Gods was out of breath. They were running so hard that they were about to vomit. They followed the mission instructions and came to this area that was under development to chase this ranger that had lost control. The ranger's firepower was ferocious. A few of their team members died before they managed to grind down the ranger's armor to the last layer of health. At this time, the ranger suddenly turned around and ran. Damn it, why is it so agile? The members of Sky Territory had bitter expressions. It's even more familiar with the environment and terrain than us. Is this robot a spirit? At this time, in the high-rise room in the center of the sanctuary, Han Xiao was lazily half-lying on the sofa. He held a tablet and swiped the screen casually. The screen was showing the perspective of the out-of-control ranger. This ranger was actually completely under his control. He had limited the ranger's strength. Yesterday, he had dismantled a lot of the ranger's weapons and ammo before releasing it. In fact, it was a weakened version, so that the members of Sky Territory would have a hard time winning. If the complete Generation 2, 5 Rangers were to unleash their full power, they would have killed more than half of the players in a single exchange. Of course, the Sky Territory players would not know this. They would think that it was because of their great teamwork that they managed to kill this out-of-control robot. This was the misconception that Han Xiao wanted to give them. Out of control? It didn't exist. We're about to catch up. As the distance closed, Sky Territory forced themselves to focus and prepare for the final attack. Han Xiao looked at the radar map and suddenly smiled evilly. He controlled the ranger that was about to be destroyed to suddenly accelerate. After a few turns, it immediately shook off sky territory and rushed toward the Guild of Gods, who were searching for the mission target. As soon as the ranger appeared, Jupiter and the others were shocked and overjoyed. It's the target. Focus fire. After a round of attacks, the ranger fell apart. Its parts fell all over the ground. The members of the Guild of Gods were confused. They had not even done anything yet. How did this robot explode? Suppressing his doubts, Jupiter picked up the mission item from the pile of parts. Chip of the out-of-control ranger. At this moment, the sky domain finally arrived. Seeing this scene, they were immediately enraged. Damn you, Guild of Gods! How dare you steal our kill? Yellow Skies shall stand was furious. They had chased after their mission target for more than a dozen streets. Now, someone had plucked the peach from the peach, and the roast duck that was in their hands had been snatched away by a dog. Furthermore, the Guild of Gods and Sky Territory had always been old rivals. The screen turned black. Han Xiao threw the tablet aside, lit a cigarette, blew out a smoke ring, and chuckled. Since the players did not want to gamble, he would create a need for them. This had always been Han Technician's service principle. I'm a professional at causing trouble. After a round of insults, Jupiter said impatiently, Azure Sky, what do you want? Return the quest item to us. You must be dreaming. Jupiter refused flatly. Why should he return the monster that he had snatched with his own abilities? Furthermore, he represented the reputation of a guild. If he backed down, wouldn't others say that they were afraid of Sky Territory? There was no way Jade Green Sky was going to swallow this loss. If the two sides could not back down, then there was no way to mediate. He could only use strength to do the talking. However, he was not willing to start a large-scale guild war. If both sides suffered losses, then they would be surpassed by other guilds. A thought flashed through Jade Green Sky's mind, and he suddenly remembered the betting function of the arena. Wasn't that the most suitable way to resolve this kind of conflict? All right, since you don't want to return it, then let's go to the arena and gamble. Ridiculous. Why do I have to fight with you? There's nothing to gain if I win, and I have to hand over my item if I lose. Humph, we'll bet too. Money, equipment, items, anything will do, Jade Green Sky provoked. I'm officially issuing you a challenge. Accept the challenge if you have the guts. He really wanted this chain mission. Firstly, Black Phantom's mission rewards were very generous, and secondly, it would increase Black Phantom's favorability. This was a deal that could be done. However, Jupiter was not provoked at all. He pushed away the people from Sky Territory and left. Anyway, the item was in his hands. As long as he turned in the mission, all the benefits would be his. There was no need to take the risk and gamble. He was too lazy to fulfill his enemy's wish. The people from Sky Territory were furious. Yellow Sky shall stand said indignantly, President, are we just going to let this go? Jade Green Sky's face was gloomy. He said angrily, Hype, forcing them to accept the challenge. I can't take this lying down. Get all the members to post on the forums and slander me. As Sky Territory started to attack the public opinion, posts slandering the Protoss flooded the forums. They portrayed the Protoss as unreasonable and immoral bullies, saying that they were cowards who did not accept the challenge and that they bullied the weak and feared the strong, etc. Because one needed to buy a gaming pod to post on the forums, the Ghost Riders were not that active. However, this time, the Protoss had reason and evidence. They directly mobilized the peripheral members to post on the forums and started a frenzy. The public opinion was rampant, but the Protoss were calm and did not panic at all. In Jupiter's opinion, as long as he dragged on until Han Xiao appeared and turned in the mission, it would be too late for the Sky Territory to make a ruckus. However, a few days passed, and Han Xiao still did not appear. Jupiter started to get anxious. He asked the guards again and again, but he could not find out where Han Xiao was. Han Xiao could also see the forums. He deliberately did not appear, which was tantamount to roasting the Protoss. As long as the Protoss did not turn in the mission to him, this mission item would only bring trouble to the Protoss. From the moment he issued the mission, he had prepared this series of dirty tricks to force the two guilds to gamble in the arena, to gain public attention, and let more players know what the use of gambling in the arena was. As long as there was someone who was the first to eat crabs and let the players see what the use of gambling in the arena was, it would awaken the people with latent needs. The Protoss in Sky Territory only treated this incident as an accident or coincidence. They did not guess that Han Xiao, the NPC who issued the mission, was behind this at all. It was a complete blind spot in their thinking. Seeing that the situation was becoming more and more unfriendly toward the Protoss, Jupiter started to have a headache. Finally, after Han Xiao disappeared for another day, Jupiter could not take it anymore. In the name of the Protoss official, he accepted Sky Territory's gambling challenge on the forums. On behalf of the Protoss Guild, I accept the gambling challenge with Sky Territory. Our wager is the mission item, Uncontrollable Robot Chip. We request that Sky Territory take out a chip of the same value. The location is the arena. 1 versus 1. Best of 5. The loser leaves the arena, and the winner can continue to fight. No matter who wins or loses, you have to admit that this is the final result. Do not cause any trouble. Jade Greensky replied quickly. Okay. The two guilds challenge made the players in the entire sanctuary excited. The gambling service in the arena was handled by the sanctuary officials. They collected the bets before the battle and promised to hand them over to the winner. To enjoy the official gambling challenge, they had to book the arena first. The fee for booking the arena would be included in the arena's turnover. The two guilds were very rich. Because they wanted to be fair to the other players, they booked the largest arena in the center. The other areas were for the players' spectator seats. It was very high profile. On the day of the challenge, all the players in the sanctuary gathered in the arena. It was bustling with activity. Who do you think will win? Definitely the Protoss. Sky Territory is far from it. Actually, the Protoss is in the wrong this time. It's very immoral. You must be joking. What's wrong with stealing kills in a game? Don't make it so obvious. There's a dealer over there. I'm going to bet on the Protoss. There's a place to bet? Let's go together. The venue was extremely noisy. It was almost like a concert of a superstar. The audience waited for a long time before the two parties finally arrived. After seeing the IDs of the two teams, the audience was stunned. The players were not from the guilds at all. They were all professional players from the two club teams. After being stunned for a while, many of the audience cheered in surprise. If the arena was not open air, their enthusiasm would have been enough to flip the roof. Originally, most of the audience had come to watch the show. However, when the professional players appeared, all the audience's interest was piqued. The Galaxy Pro League had not been formed yet. The normal players had not seen the strength of the professional players, so their enthusiasm was high. Temple of God is indeed strong. All the players here are first-tier and quasi-first-tier players. Unfortunately, Li Gu is not here. I heard that he went to participate in the expedition. That's right. Long Sky's foundation is a bit weaker. They are basically second-tier players. The first-tier players, Sleepy Winter and Twinkle Fried Rice, are also in the war. Wait, is that Great God Hao Tian? Hao Tian was expressionless as he mixed in with Long Sky's team. The audience all looked at him with disbelief and respect. Wherever he passed, the audience subconsciously slowed down their discussions. It was as if there was a steady aura around him. As the pillar of Long Sky, Hao Tian was naturally pulled over by Jade Green Sky. His fame and strength were far beyond the first-tier players. He was the most eye-catching professional player in the arena. Facing such a god, the players of Temple of God immediately felt pressured. The two guilds belonged to the clubs, so they invited their players over to help without any prior communication. Seeing the members of the other side, Jade Green Sky and Jupiter broke out in cold sweat. At the same time, they thought, luckily, I also pulled in a professional player. Damn it, I almost got tricked by that old sly bastard. The central ring was very wide and hexagonal. The square in the middle was the battlefield, and the triangles on both sides were the waiting area. The people of Sky Territory and Guild of Gods were waiting in the waiting area. The audience below the ring whispered and waited excitedly. Some of the players had different thoughts. It seems that gambling in the ring can increase the exposure. Some of the spectating guilds thought to themselves, if we guard the ring, we can spar with players of various factions and even earn bets. Some of the players who liked PK said to themselves. The spectating professional players nodded. Not only does guarding the ring increase the exposure, but it can also train our skills. This function is not bad. Seeing the grandeur and effect of the gambling in the arena with their own eyes, many of the players saw the benefits and entertainment in it. Han Xiao invited the two guilds to fight because he wanted the other players to experience the function of this function, so that the players could use their creativity and expand the functions of this function to satisfy different needs. Chapter 269. How Tian was the face of Long Sky, a top-tier god. His PK skills were superb, and his level was way above average. With these two advantages, he was the first to enter the stage. His punches and kicks were violent, and he defeated 3 Protoss players in a row. The combat power of the pugilist class was displayed vividly. The audience thought that they would see a fierce battle, but they did not expect it to be a one-sided battle. The whole battle did not even last more than 5 minutes. This shock was like a wild horse that had unleashed a wild and unrestrained move, ruthlessly stomping on everyone's hearts. After being stunned for a few seconds, deafening cheers and applause erupted, reaching the clouds. Awesome. This was the audience. God how Tian. God how Tian. This was the fanatical audience. F***CK Tian. I'm cheering for you. This was How Tian's diehard fan. How Tian's performance refreshed the audience's understanding of the upper limit of the current level of combat power, and he gained a large number of fans. Although this was a private bet, the audience's enthusiasm and excitement made people think that this was a professional match. I won. How Tian's eyes moved slightly. He did not expect to win so easily. It was as if he had walked a long way and suddenly turned around and realized that the people behind him were all noobs. His combat power had unknowingly exceeded that of a normal professional player. In the beginning, How Tian only saw Han Zhao's hidden quest as a chance to test his luck. After he was lucky enough to win it, he did not treasure it and only saw it as a short-term springboard. How Tian's professional instinct was to plan his own development from a long-term perspective. Black Phantom was a mechanic, and he was a pugilist, so he felt that he could not follow Han Xiao forever. Just in terms of skills, he had to find a new mentor somewhere else. However, it was not until now that he realized how much he had gained, and he could not help but value Han Xiao more. Even at max level, the high EXP reward from Black Phantom's mission is very reasonable. How Tian thought to himself. Black Phantom's mission reward was really rich, so there was no harm in enduring the weird mission. As a professional player, inhuman willpower, endurance, and stamina were basic qualities. The Black Phantom line seems to be able to develop for a long time, much longer than I expected. The agreement was to win 3 out of 5, and How Tian would end the bet with a 1 versus 3 victory. The other Long Sky players were just there to watch, looking at How Tian like fanboys. In a Long Sky club, How Tian, who had been in the pro scene for many years, was everyone's idol. He was quiet, focused on techniques, and won many trophies for Long Sky. He was one of the founding members of Long Sky and had already been tied to the name Long Sky. The Protoss had been thoroughly defeated. All the team members they had invited were dumbfounded. GG, we're all pro players. Aren't you showing off too much? At least give them some face. The players already knew how strong How Tian was. Not to mention his skills, the biggest problem was his level, attributes, and skills. They immediately thought of how Tian had triggered Black Phantom's hidden storyline, and they could not help but feel envious. I wonder what kind of missions he usually does for Black Phantom to level up so quickly. The Temple of God players were envious and jealous. They also wanted such treatment, but Black Phantom did not give them any face. Everyone's levels are not high now, so the gap is huge. When the Pro League starts, everyone's levels will be higher, and he won't be able to beat us as easily as he did today. The gap will shrink sooner or later. A Temple of God player cheered everyone up. The team members were only pulled over to help, so winning or losing was not important to them. However, Jupiter was so angry that his face turned green. He wanted to smash Jade Green Sky's smug face with his head. Under the official notarization, the mission item was returned to Sky territory. The audience that had left excitedly discussed how Tion's outstanding performance. The conflict between guilds was always a hot topic. Losing the bet was only a temporary loss of face for Guild of God. They were still a powerhouse. So many people in the guild felt it was unfair. If our Greatly Good was here, how Tion would have been beaten to a pulp. Long Sky is just lucky. What's there to be proud of? When the dust settled, Han Xiao finally arrived the next day. The people of Sky territory handed in the mission immediately. Seeing this, Jupiter was filled with regret. If he had known that Han Xiao would appear today, he would have waited one more day, and everything would have been fine. Of course, this was only Jupiter's own opinion. As long as the conflict did not escalate to a battle, Han Xiao would not come out. He had a very high level of patience. Back then, when the nightmare started, he had endured in the Germinal organization base for half a year before he found the opportunity to escape and turn the situation around. In fact, Han Xiao had prepared even more dirty tricks. If the two big guilds made a deal in private and did not end up in a conflict, Han Xiao's motto was to do it again if it did not work once. At most, he would drag more guilds into the mess. He was good at fanning the flames, and he could guarantee that the hatred would burn. If that still did not work, he would simply issue a mission and ask the guilds to book the entire arena. However, that would be too obvious, and Han Technician preferred to play dirty. What a loss. Jupiter wanted to cry, but had no tears. This time, a private message notification sounded. He took a look and saw that it was from Ligue. He quickly picked it up. Great Ligue? I saw what you guys did recently. Do you have a recording of how Tion's battle? It's all recorded. Send it to me. Oh, okay. After receiving the recording, Li Gu said with satisfaction, with the recording, I can analyze his battle style and prepare for the Pro League. You guys did well. Hearing this, Jupiter's dejection was swept away, and he pulled himself together. It did not matter how much they suffered as long as the team had the advantage. Being the team's nanny was one of the responsibilities of the guild. The battle between the guilds showed the effect of the arena. Many people started to have ideas, and gradually, other guilds and players started to book the entire arena to guard the arena or do other activities. The function of the arena gradually came into play. Other than PK, the players in the arena could also participate in other activities, making the arena even livelier. Other than gameplay, Galaxy also had a social function, and the lively arena was obviously a great place to socialize. Some players would rather spend all their time in the arena 24 hours a day in order to lose their sense of purpose because of the game. As a place with high exposure, people who wanted to spread their fame had a need for the arena. Guilds would organize small activities to increase their fame, and professional players would come to guard the arena and interact with the normal players. It was like some stadiums that were rented to celebrities to hold concerts. Everyone was getting what they wanted. According to Han Zhao's experience, not only guilds, but even some companies would book the entire arena to hold small activities. For example, the XX company name, Cup League, was a commercial competition that was not recognized by the Esports Association. The winner would give a prize to attract participants and promote their fame. Some professional players would even participate in such small competitions for the prize money. Do not ask how he knew this. In his previous life, there was a time when Han Xiao became extremely rich. He even dared to buy instant noodles from the convenience store downstairs. Furthermore, the activities held by merchants did not have to be PK competitions. They could be art parties or sports activities. There had always been an audience for small games in the game, as Galaxy was extremely realistic. Other than not being able to excrete, there was a lot of freedom. The players could use their own imagination and use their superhuman qualities to play other sports, such as superhuman basketball, pugilist soccer, mechanic racing, and so on. Han Xiao had seen all of these in his previous life, and such creative and fun activities were very popular among the casual players. Galaxy also slowly formed a virtual interactive community because of this. It was very strange and lively. The current players had only just come into contact with Galaxy, so they had to follow the rules and not do any weird activities. Han Xiao had provided a platform to guide the players to explore the entertainment aspect of the game. There would always be rich people who bought the arena and came up with all kinds of gimmicks. The arena was like an activity program to attract players. Normal players could watch the activities while fighting each other for free, so it was easy for them to form a habit and tradition. Think about it. If you went for a walk every day, the park you walked in would often hold all kinds of activities. Over time, even if you did not participate, you would gradually become curious and guess what kind of activities you would see next time you walked. Therefore, when the arena became a common facility, it would increase the sense of belonging of the players to the main city in the long run. After all, interest could be cultivated. In other words, it was the same principle as training. You had to let them get used to it before they would like it, and take the initiative in the end. Chapter 270. The attractiveness of the arena as a main city would allow the players to spread the word of the arena and attract more newcomers. This was the benefit that Han Xiao really wanted. In fact, Han Technician had a lot of ideas. For example, setting up the odds for the opening of the arena. He also wanted to customize the PK rank for Sky Island and the Maiden, or add points to the arena. Both of these could attract players, but he gave up after thinking about it. These two things were not easy to operate. There were things that were set by the game officials. If he, an NPC, were to do it, he felt that there would be some hidden dangers and negative effects. Most importantly, if he, as an official, gave out rewards, those studios and actors everywhere would make him bankrupt. Han Technician would not fall for it. After all, this was one of his businesses in his previous life. Although he was taking advantage of the players, strictly speaking, it was a mutually beneficial situation. From a neutral point of view, purely providing the venue and fairness, allowing the players to do what they want, was the most comfortable and safe position for Han Xiao. It could also be explained as guiding the Inhumans to vent their excess energy. When a main city's position was stabilized, it would take in a large number of players every day. In Han Xiao's blueprint, the next step was the evil real estate. As the person in charge, other than the place to shelter the refugees, all the empty spaces in the sanctuary that were waiting to be built were his treasure trove. The spendthrifts, the big customers were naturally the big guilds that were willing to buy property. Side business. Looking at the moving heads in the square, Han Xiao stroked his chin and sighed. Huang Yu was convinced. He originally thought that the arena was a waste of resources, but after more than 10 days of observation, he gradually found the potential benefits. Huang Yu did not understand Han Xiao's long-term plan, nor did he understand the nature of the players. However, when he did the turnover report, he found that the cost of renting the arena to the Inhumans far exceeded the cost of maintaining it. In the long run, the cost would be recovered sooner or later. After that, it would be a net profit, and this was only one of the benefits. The Inhumans were the main force behind the construction of the sanctuary. However, the Inhumans were unpredictable and difficult to manage. Huang Yu didn't want the Inhumans to have too much contact with the refugees, so he divided the area where the Inhumans could be active. However, the Inhumans still came looking for the refugees every 2 to 3 days. Although their motive was to help to complete missions, it also made Huang Yu's management ineffective. After the completion of the arena, the Inhumans took the initiative to make the arena their activity center. The square and the arena automatically became the Inhuman community, which saved him the effort of management. The entire sanctuary was much more orderly. At this time, Huang Yu was in the office, flattering Han Xiao, praising Han Technician's wisdom and foresight. All kinds of mushy words jumped out of his mouth and jumped into Han Xiao's ears, disgusting him to the point that he had goosebumps all over his body. After chasing Huang Yu away with much difficulty, Han Xiao continued to think about his plans for the players' main cities. The use of the arena was more in the future, and he was not satisfied with that. To increase the attractiveness of the main city, the arena is one of the factors. Another way is to have some regular activities. Other than the special activities of the game officials, if I want to attract the players to do activities, I have to let them see the actual benefits. Han Xiao tapped his fingers on the table and thought for a while. Suddenly, an idea came to him. The moon set and the sun rose. In the gorst wilderness in the early morning, dust and sand mixed with fog gave people a humid and uncomfortable feeling. However, the surroundings of the sanctuary were very clean and refreshing. This kind of hazy fog was excluded. The sanctuary was more or less completed. There was a super large air filter, and the sanctuary paid attention to preventing radiation pollution to ensure air quality. The players were adding bricks and tiles to the sanctuary. On the steel bars of the protective wall, a group of players were welding. Sparks flew everywhere. This work was dangerous and boring. The players stepped on the steel bars and swayed. Be careful, don't fall. Just as one person finished speaking, the person next to him slipped. Everyone's eyes followed his figure silently as he fell. The long sound became longer and longer. The protective wall was tall and was the most dangerous of all the construction missions. From time to time, players would fall and die accidentally. I told you to be careful. On another steel bar, a player with the ID half a cigarette when lonely said indignantly, D***. The safe and easy construction missions with rich rewards are all taken by the big guilds. Normal players like us can only do the less cost-effective missions. Where there were people, there was competition. There were many types of construction missions in the sanctuary. The easy and rewarding missions were all taken by the guilds. Most solo players could only get the remaining missions. Most players were just doing it for fun and did not care. However, there were some players who were serious. Half a cigarette when lonely was still indignant and kept talking. Those big guilds took all the resources. They are rich and overbearing. We lost at the beginning. How are we going to fight in the future? Someone beside him laughed. It's just a game. Don't be so serious. Playing a game is to be the best. Otherwise, what's the point of playing? Half a cigarette when lonely retorted and said disdainfully, that's why you are all salted fish. You don't have any dreams at all. If you're so envious of others, why don't you just join a guild? Only the weak are in a group. Solo is the style of the strong. Half a cigarette when lonely had a look of disdain. He would not talk about the painful experience of being rejected when he applied to join a guild. Everyone looked down from above and suddenly realized that on the square of the sanctuary, players the size of ants had gathered in circles. This was the signature phenomenon of Han Zhao's appearance. The regional channel suddenly had broadcast messages from other players. It seemed that Black Phantom had a new function, which allowed him to summon friends. The people who were building the protective wall hurriedly put down their work and ran down the wall. Some of them even jumped down, died, and respawned in the square to save time. Half a cigarette when lonely ran to the square, there was already a huge crowd. Han Xiao stood in the corner of the square, and behind him was a large truck. Half a cigarette when lonely, like the other players, craned his neck and looked over curiously. Looking at the bustling crowd, Han Xiao coughed a few times and said loudly, Recently, my warehouse has accumulated a lot of goods that need to be dealt with. They have all been packed. If anyone wants to buy them, they can be sold at a low price. The players in the square looked at each other. Packed? What does that mean? They did not understand. Since they had accumulated a lot of goods, did they still want to buy them? I want 10 of them, Jade Greensky said immediately. With the thought that Black Phantom's products must be the best, he was willing to be the first to try. No matter what the new function was, he would know after trying it out. 3,000 aquamarine coins for one box. So expensive? Jade Greensky was shocked. He forced himself to buy it and spent all the money he had. Although he was the president, he did not just keep the guild's funds with him. These were all his personal assets. After taking the money, Han Xiao took out 10 boxes from the truck. Jade Greensky opened 9 of them, and his face darkened. The boxes were filled with broken parts and cheap mechanical materials. The players around saw this and shook their heads. What kind of goods are these? They're more like accumulated trash. These pieces of junk take up space even if they were given to me. Only an idiot would buy this kind of thing. When Jade Greensky heard this, he turned around and glared fiercely. He opened the last box gloomily without any hope. However, as soon as the box was opened, Jade Greensky's lazy eyes suddenly froze. He stared blankly at the contents of the box. A retractable knife lay quietly in the box. In his field of vision, the name of the saber was in purple. This was a piece of purple equipment. Everyone saw his expression and became curious. They stood on their tiptoes and gasped when they saw it clearly. Cries of surprise spread out like ripples. Until now, the players had never seen a piece of purple equipment. This was the first one that appeared in front of the players. Jay Greensky opened his mouth wide. Looking at the 10 boxes in front of him, he suddenly felt a sense of familiarity and reacted immediately. Wait, this gameplay, isn't it just opening boxes? Chapter 271. Isn't this the way to open treasure chests? This idea spread like a virus, and the players' interest was piqued. Some of the gamblers were so excited that their hands were trembling and they could not wait to go all out. The most low-traffic, commercial-free website on mobile phones. Opening treasure chests was also known as the evil road of paywalls. It was a classic way for game developers to generate revenue, and Han Xiao was naturally very familiar with it. Not only could it ignite the gambler's desire to gamble, but he could also earn a huge sum of money if they fell into the trap. Coincidentally, he had the conditions and needs to do so he could use it as one of his regular activities to attract players. Every planet had its own currency, and after the 3 universal civilizations established order, for the convenience of communication, they created a universal culture, a universal currency, and a universal language. The unique currencies of the various galactic civilizations could be converted into the universal currency, but a surface civilization like Blue Star naturally did not have such a privilege. The aquamarine dollar had almost no purchasing power, and it could not be used in the universe at all. Therefore, if one wanted to go to the galaxy, they had to first convert the money into resources and machines. Different civilizations had different prices for resources, and it could barely be considered a hard currency in the universe. No matter how bad it was still more valuable than the aquamarine dollar. In version 2.0, the novice planets would connect with the galactic civilizations in different ways, and the local currency would be exchanged, so the players did not have to worry about this problem. However, Han Xiao wanted to leave the novice planet in version 1.0, so he had to pay attention to the differences in currency, language, culture, and so on. His wealth was all in the aquamarine dollar, and it was a pile of waste paper outside of Blue Star. Therefore, he used it all to buy materials and machines. Furthermore, he could also gain some experience by making machines, increasing his foundation. Because of this, he had accumulated a lot of useless machines, and he used them as prizes to open treasure chests. The drop rate of the treasure chests was completely under his control. Most of the treasure chests were filled with useless parts and garbage, and only a few of them contained good stuff. The cost would not exceed the profit, so it was a sure win. Of course, the players would also spend money to bet on the future, even if they knew that they could be unlucky. Before seeing a pile of garbage, everyone would feel lucky. Even players who did not have much money would grit their teeth and buy one to try their luck. Even if they were unlucky, they would convince themselves that they would be lucky next time. They would never get tired of it. Most players like this kind of lucky draw. They have the opportunity to earn a huge profit with a very small cost. It's the same principle as the lottery. But now, other than me, there's no lucky draw anywhere else. There are 2 kinds of lucky draws. One is the game's official store. The lucky draw in a store is not online yet. It's mainly a special virtual item, such as dungeon crystals, gene repair fluid, red and blue potions, experience potions, and fashion accessories. The other is the actions of the storyline organizations and characters. This is the proper way to obtain direct benefits. For example, some organizations have a contribution system to draw powerful equipment and items, or some mysterious merchants have gambling games, and some organizations deal with old goods for the players to make money. When the organizations and civilizations understand the players better and treat them as mercenaries, the lucky draw for storyline characters will gradually appear. Speaking of which, it should be a new way for the organizations to drive the inhuman mercenaries, using profit as the motivation. My image in the eyes of the players is probably planet protagonist, mechanic mentor, and merchant, handsome, important NPC with legendary characteristics, and so on. The acceptance of me doing the lucky draw is also higher among the players. Furthermore, it's the first lucky draw, so it should attract more attention. Han Xiao pondered. 3,000 per box was not cheap, but the players at this level had some spare cash, so buying 1 or 2 boxes would not hurt them. If they got a piece of purple equipment, they would be rich. There was not a single piece of purple equipment on the market, which meant that it was a seller's market. The rarer something was, the more expensive it would be. Their burning gazes immediately focused on the large truck full of boxes. All kinds of thoughts flashed in the eyes of the players. Then, they saw Han Xiao standing at the side, and all their thoughts were extinguished. It was better to spend money honestly and not seek death. Of the 10 boxes, 9 were trash, and 1 was purple. It was unknown whether Jay Green Sky was lucky or the ratio was that high to begin with. The players started to buy enthusiastically, and the boxes were opened one after another. Some were happy, while others were sad. Other than trash, there were other things such as some useful materials, some green equipment, and some blue equipment. Overall, the drop rate was quite high, but there was not a second piece of purple equipment. Could it be that the purple equipment is only dropped after 10 consecutive draws? A player's face was red, and he could not control himself. It's hard to say. I feel that the drop rate is a bit weird, and it can't be explained by normal logic. First, we have to understand one thing. Is the opening of the boxes introduced by Black Phantom a part of the game's plot? Everyone knows that it is extremely realistic, and every character seems to have their own logic, almost like the real world. A character's actions definitely have their own reasons and motives. So, is this lucky draw a function of the game official, or is he really clearing the storage? A guy pushed his glasses up, and a wise light flashed through his lenses. But if he is clearing the storage, why didn't he just throw away the remaining items, but sell them to us instead? Wow, this guy is quite knowledgeable. Everyone was attracted by this guy's words, and they surrounded him. They looked up and saw that this guy's ID was King of Single Draw. The surrounding players' mouths twitched. No wonder he spoke so clearly. His ID showed that he was a veteran of the martial arts world. Someone asked, "That's interesting. How do we tell?" The storage of the heavy boxes was getting smaller and smaller. King of Single Draw's eyes flashed, and he walked past the crowd and asked loudly, "How many boxes are there left?" Han Xiao waved his hand and said, "A total of 786 boxes, and there are 530 left." The players were stunned, and there was an uproar. They thought that the boxes were unlimited, but they did not expect that it was limited. This time, some of the spectating players could not sit still anymore, and they waved their cash to join in the rush to buy the boxes. King of Single Draw changed his posture, one hand on his chest, one hand on his chin, and he looked like a detective in deep thought. He said with certainty, "That's right. Since it's limited, it can't be a function of the game official. Black Phantom is really clearing the storage, but he chose to seal the boxes and sell them instead of just throwing them away. And there's still precious purple equipment in the storage, so this can't be considered a waste disposal at all. So, the only reason is that this is not a waste disposal in the true sense. Black Phantom is actually secretly giving us benefits by doing this. That's right, us Inhumans helped him build the sanctuary. So this is a hidden reward to us." King of Single Draw's voice was not soft, and when the players in the square heard it, they immediately agreed. What he said was reasonable, and it was convincing. If it's a function of the game official, then the game official will definitely announce the drop rate. But if it's a part of the game's plot, then it's up to the players to experience it for themselves and summarize the hidden drop rate. King of Single Draw's eyes flashed. For the sake of balance, the game official will definitely not draw anything too awesome, but if it's Black Phantom's reward lottery, it's different. You might really be able to get something good, which means that these mechanical boxes might drop some earth-shattering, godly equipment. His words made everyone's blood boil. They gasped for breath like oxen. They were incomparably excited, and the crowd was in high spirits. Han Xiao, who was beside him, was dumbfounded. He was completely confused and confused. Chapter 272. There were some who drew a single draw, and some who drew 10 in a row. However, there was no difference. Han Xiao only controlled the overall cost of a batch of chests, and he did not care about the exact time when the chests were sold. It all depended on the player's luck. There was no such thing as under-the-table manipulation. He wanted the players to feel the warmth of home. The most low-traffic, advertising-free site on mobile phones. If there was a guarantee for 10 consecutive draws, more people could be attracted. However, he was using a limited purchase model. There were only so many chests in each batch, and they would definitely be sold out. Even if he did not earn more, it would increase the cost. If there was a guarantee for 10 consecutive draws under the premise of limited purchase, there might be rich guilds who would buy in bulk and use their resources to crush normal players. That would not be good. In the first batch of chests, there was only one purple item, Jade Green Skies. Only this item was given out by Han Xiao himself to ensure that it would attract the interest of the players. He did not care about the other chests. Other than the discarded parts, there were a few blue equipment, a dozen green equipment, and some useful parts and materials. The players could accept this drop rate. Some were happy, while others were sad. In the first batch of over 700 chests, only a small portion of the thousands of players bought them. The others watched from the side. This batch of overstocked goods has been dealt with. I will clear the warehouse regularly in the future, Han Xiao said. Oh, that's it. The players wanted more. They were itching to buy more. It was useless even if they wanted more. The players could only watch as Han Xiao drove away. The players who had gained something were happy. Half a cigarette when lonely was envious. He touched his wallet and hesitated. 3,000 per chest. So expensive. I can't get anything good with my luck. Should I buy it? 3,000 per chest. I sold over 700 chests this time. That's probably a lot of money. Han Xiao calculated in his mind as he drove. After deducting the cost, there was a net profit of about a few $100,000. This allowed the capital to flow in and out continuously. It completely covered the cost of buying materials and building machinery. It was more stable and profitable than selling goods. He put high-quality equipment in the chests that matched the players' levels. He would not give out anything that was too good to be true. The first unboxing event caused a lot of discussion among the players in the shelter, and their excitement was piqued. Han Xiao struck while the iron was hot, and after a few days, they started the next unboxing event. After 4 consecutive times, the players finally began to get used to this regular activity. Every time it was a fixed time, the players would wait in the square in advance for Han Xiao's car to arrive, rubbing their hands in anticipation. There were hundreds of boxes in each batch. In the beginning, it took 20 minutes to sell them all, but by the 4th time, they were all sold out in just 6 minutes. This showed that the players' acceptance and love for this event had increased. Han Xiao's goal of organizing this event was a success. The Blue Star section of the forums was spreading this news. Almost all the players had never seen a purple equipment before, and they didn't know where to get one. At this critical moment, Han Xiao's open treasure chest event had appeared out of nowhere, and it was the only way to get a purple equipment. Naturally, it received a lot of attention, and its influence gradually spread. Han Xiao saw that the forum was bustling with noise and excitement. A few players who had drawn purple equipment had posted to show off, and there were many envious and jealous replies. Greetings to the big boss in the purple suit. Sigh. Gambling doesn't change what's wrong. Xin doesn't change fate. Europeans eat our African giants. Another round of 10. Don't pull me, I'm not crazy. I'll definitely get a purple this time. My intuition won't be wrong. I thought this game was different from those flirtatious cheese outside, but I didn't expect you to betray the revolution too. This day, the Africans finally remembered the fear of being dominated by bloodlines. Content caused discomfort. Reported. Bijam, we're different. 10 consecutive draws. No guarantee. Single draw is a miracle. I've learned something new. Shoot filth. Guild of Gods buying purple equipment. Price negotiable. Private message. Sky Territory buying purple equipment. Price higher than Guild of Gods. Private message. 9 draws all black. Silently watching the OP show off. 13 draws all black. Passing by. Laughing and touching the head of the dog above. 18 draws all black people are crazy. F***CK. I'm going to rob Black Phantom's warehouse tomorrow. Highest respect to the brother above. You're a fighter for liberation. You're the flame of revolution. I'll take care of your wife and daughter. Don't worry. Have a good trip. Salute. Salute +1. Keep the formation below. Salute +2. Salute +2. 3. All the players were complaining nonstop, and it was very lively, spontaneously giving Han Xiao a name for his lucky draw. Always leading the trend, never being surpassed. With a large amount of money in his account, Han Xiao did not care about the price and bought materials and parts in bulk, spending most of his time in the workshop building machines, converting the aquamarine dollars into valuable materials and machines, and, at the same time, gaining a lot of manufacturing experience. He also created low-grade purple equipment as prizes, so he was way ahead of the players. The machines that he did not use were rare equipment to the players, and his development was not in vain. It was now the season of harvest. The sanctuary was on the right track, and Huang Yu took care of the miscellaneous matters, so Han Xiao only needed to sign the documents. Hella was accompanying Aurora in her rehabilitation training, Madblade, Maple Moon, Pork Bun, and how Tion received missions from Han Xiao to play with Aurora, and the Han technician was basically in a semi-free mode for them for the time being. At the same time, Han Xiao did not forget to take a look at the direction of the war occasionally. The Six Nations situation was very good, and the Germinal organization was basically in a state of collapse. He estimated that after a while, the Germinal organization would happily announce GG, ending the war completely, and the whole of Blue Star would be liberated from the shadow of war. The last time he browsed the information on the darknet, there were 20 to 30% fewer wanderers than before the war, and they had joined various forces to seek protection. This made Han Xiao feel strange, as if the war had promoted the establishment of order and the free people in the wild returned to the arms of the ruling class because of fear. The situation was developing in a better direction, but Han Xiao believed in Murphy's Law. Before the dust settled, he did not want to pay too much attention to the war, in case there were any accidents. Anyway, he had done what he could. All the information was provided by him, and he had also harvested the combat power of the Germinal organization's executive officers. He had the upper hand in terms of combat power and intelligence. If he still could not win, then the Six Nations could go to hell. Han Technician temporarily focused on the players' main city plan. The players were an important part of the plan, and he valued them very much. On this day, Han Xiao pulled another cart of boxes, and the players swarmed toward him. In every event, the king of single draw, who was always talking, did not make a move. He was very patient, observing like a hunter, recording the results of the other players, and calculating the drop rate. Influenced by him, the king of single draw was surrounded by a circle of players, and they followed suit. At this time, a confident voice exploded in the crowd. "Give me 100 boxes." Everyone was shocked. They looked toward the source of the voice and saw a player with the ID. "So pour all that has left money, walk out." "So pour all that has left money. Is this a real tycoon?" 100 boxes is equivalent to 300,000 aquamarine dollars. F***CK, that's a sky-high price. So he's a real tycoon. Let's be friends. That's a big deal. In the past, only the big guilds could do consecutive draws, and the highest number of consecutive draws was 15. 100 consecutive draws is too crazy. I've never seen it before. Han Xiao raised his eyebrows. Such an arrogant idea was like a big leak walking in front of him. Chapter 273. 100 boxes were neatly stacked into a small hill. It was a rare scene, and the players could not help but temporarily stop buying and watch curiously. So Poor That Only Has Money took a deep breath and quickly opened the boxes. The onlookers craned their necks, and their faces gradually changed from anticipation to astonishment, and then to ridicule. All 100 boxes were opened, and the best one was a blue submachine gun. The discarded parts were piled up into a small hill, and So Poor That Only Has Money's face turned green. A blue equipment and 100 consecutive hits. Good. This wave is very strong. Chief, please accept my worship. You can't change your fortune, big brother. New expansion pack, Galaxy, Destruction of the Tycoons. Why do I feel so good? Someone was gloating. So Poor That Only Has Money grabbed his hair in distress, looking depressed. Just like his ID, he was a tycoon and was used to throwing money. This method was successful most of the time. With money, he could do whatever he wanted. Lottery events were his favorite. He did not care whether he earned or lost, but he liked the moment of pleasure when he got something good. However, he was defeated by Han Xiao. No matter how many consecutive draws there was no guarantee. Just like lottery tickets, it all depended on luck and probability. So Poor That Only Has Money felt that there was a high probability of getting something good, but his face was so black that people could not bear to look at it. Although it was good to be a tycoon, Han Xiao treated them equally. He did not want to break the rules because of tycoons. His target customer group was all players with a large base, so that more people could participate in this event and make it a main city feature, not an event that only belonged to tycoons. After all, the number of boxes was limited, and there was no guarantee for consecutive draws to avoid one person buying too many boxes. If there was a guarantee for consecutive draws, other tycoons or guilds would follow suit. Every batch of limited boxes would be bought by a few tycoons, and other players would have fewer opportunities to participate. This would gradually reduce the attraction of the event, and long-term development was the way to go. People had a herd mentality. Once it was a group's hobby, needs, and habits, the overall impact on the player group was different. So Poor That Only Has Money wanted to buy more, and this made the other players unhappy. 100 consecutive draws was fine. They would treat it as something new. The number of boxes was limited, and it would be too much to buy more. Seeing that the crowd was stirred up and that he was so poor that he only had money left, he could only give up. He awkwardly scratched his head and walked to the side. Beside him, King of Single Draw had a look of disdain on his face as he said to the crowd beside him, "Did you see that? There's no skill in throwing money at all. There's only a large amount of observation and research. Calculating the drop rate through calculation is the way to go." As he spoke, the King of Single Draw was brimming with confidence. He grinned, and his teeth and glasses flashed at the same time. "Next, watch my performance." Leading the crowd to Han Xiao, the King of Single Draw was fully focused on his calculations. After the players had bought the boxes, he suddenly shouted, scaring the crowd. Then, he squeezed to the front of the line and bought the next box. "Hee, based on my experience, there must be good stuff in this box." The King of Single Draw's confidence was off the charts. He opened the box under everyone's expectant gazes. Everyone fell silent with strange looks in their eyes. The atmosphere was very awkward. The King of Single Draw's mouth twitched. He coughed dryly and said, "You should know that this is a matter of probability. If the first time doesn't work, try a few more times. I'm sure something good will come out." However, the next 4 singles were all black, and his eyes became more and more suspicious. "Can you do it or not? Bullsh asterisk T, next time, it will definitely be purple." The King of Single Draw's eyes were red, and he was panting like a drunk gambler. He bought a new box, closed his eyes, and murmured, "Gods and deities, please bless my luck this time. Umaba, may I have good luck." After muttering more than 10 times, he felt his palms heat up as if an inexplicable energy had descended upon him. All kinds of famous sayings flashed through the half a cigarette when lonely's mind. Where there's a will, there's a way. If there's a will, there's a way. If there's a problem, then there's a way. If there's a problem, then there's a way, and so on. There's definitely something this time. The king of single draw suddenly opened his eyes. His confidence surged. He shouted and opened the box. A pile of trash. The king of single draw stood in place, dazed. Why is it like this? Could it be that the laws I researched are all fake? Opening the box is fake. This world is fake. Fake. It's all fake. In the crowd, half a cigarette when it's lonely touched his wallet. It was finally his turn. He hesitated for a while and said, "I'll buy one." This was the first time he bought one. He was hesitant the previous few times. Although 3,000 aquamarine dollars was not a lot, he was just a normal player. His wealth was hard to come by, and he was reluctant to spend it. However, many players had obtained good equipment through this event, and he was tempted. In the end, he decided to buy one box. Half a cigarette when its lonely's goal was very low. He would be satisfied with just green equipment. He did not even dare to think about blue or purple equipment. Half a cigarette when its lonely ran to the side, held his breath, and opened the box. Purple light rushed into his eyes. Purple equipment. Half a cigarette when its lonely was stunned. He was so excited that his whole body trembled. The players around him all looked at him with envy. Another lucky guy. TSK, I want a purple equipment too. Every time, someone would get a purple equipment. Although it was rare, the players had seen many people get purple equipment, so they were used to it. After a while of envy, they no longer cared. Half a cigarette when its lonely picked up the purple equipment and played with it. Suddenly, he had an impulse. Why don't I buy another one to try my luck? Half a cigarette when its lonely calmed himself down and bought another box. He opened it casually. Purple light again. Half a cigarette when its lonely opened his mouth wide, and his heart was hit by a huge surprise. The surrounding players looked over again and were amazed. Another purple equipment? You're so lucky. Wow. Hurry up and take a breath. 2 draws, 2 wins. Why don't you go buy a lottery ticket? Fisk, so what if you're lucky? Every dog has its day. It'll be my turn next year. Brother, I'll allow you to show off, but don't go overboard. Some were envious, some were impressed, and some were jealous. So poor all that his money looked helpless. His 100 consecutive draws could not compare to 2 random draws. What kind of world was this? Where did the privilege of being a tycoon go? King of single draw gritted his teeth. He was on the verge of breaking down. He screamed in his heart, I must have let him take the hit. The purple equipment was originally mine. Why don't I buy another one? Half a cigarette when its lonely touched his wallet. He had just over 3,000 left. He made up his mind and bought another one. He was like a gambler who had tasted the sweetness and fell into the abyss of gambling. Can I win this time? Half a cigarette when lonely suddenly felt a little regretful. He was already extremely lucky to have gotten it twice in a row. The chances of getting it 3 times in a row was too low. Moreover, there were only 3 purple equipment in each batch. If he had gotten it, wouldn't that mean that he had gotten all the purple equipment in the batch? He opened the box for the 3rd time with a nervous heart. The familiar purple light overflowed. Half a cigarette when its lonely was stunned. All the surrounding players were stunned. Damn, he won all 3 single draws. What kind of luck is this? No, this can't be called luck. This is King luck. Everyone looked at the stunned half a cigarette when it's lonely in shock. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.